call the meeting to order. This is the February 9, 2016 meeting of the Fairfield Town Plan and Zoning Commission. First item on our agenda are bills and communications, the meeting minutes from January 26, 2016.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi. Second by Commissioner Kennelly. Everybody have a copy of those? Any questions, corrections? Everything looked pretty good to me. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? And the item carries unanimously. I forgot to mention that Commissioner Francis is absent and Commissioner Ford will be designated for her this evening. Next item on the agenda is new applications to recommend a public hearing. 845 and 917 Mill Hill Terrace and 130 and 156 Pease Avenue. Special exception application of Maplewood Senior Living pertaining to the construction of an assisted living facility.
This property, Mr. Chairman, is right off, I mean, as you exit 19 southbound, it's to the right, fronting on Mill Hill Terrace. It's a large piece of property adjacent to the west of Mill Hill School. What's proposed here is an assisted living facility on a portion of the property and requires public hearing.
Okay. I have a motion. A motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. Public hearing is required. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Move to public hearing unanimously. Old business, 300 Quincy Street, request of Alfonso Camarada Jr. for 100% release of a $17,799 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an A zone.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, we had a hearing on this last meeting. This is a two-lot subdivision that was approved on November 18th, 2014. The bonded improvements included drainage, concrete curbs, monuments, ramps, and sidewalks, street trees, and site stabilization. I believe we sent you a copy of the report by engineering. They did review it, and they find that all work is completed as required, and they recommend the 100% release.
Very good. Thank you. Have a motion?
I'll move to approve the bond release.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Barrett.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi. And I am fully up to speed, watch the tapes, so I'm fully prepared to vote on all items tonight. Any comments? Any comments? Seems to be in order. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The bond is released unanimously. Next item is 70 Reef Road, special permit application of Oceana Mediterranean Taverna to enclose an existing outdoor dining area in the Center Design District.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll briefly go over what was presented to you at the hearing at our last meeting. An existing exterior dining area consisting of 479.5 square feet which has been previously approved for a seasonal outdoor dining area, is basically the applicant is requesting permission to convert this seasonal exterior dining area to a year-round area, which would comprise of a little smaller area of about 448 square feet. The area in question is somewhat less than the existing area. On December 3rd, 2015, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted variances with regard to Section 2012.7.6 involving a street line setback from Sherman Street and Reef Road. With regard to Sherman Street, the existing building is located at 1.9 feet from the street line. The existing awning is 2.4 feet from the street line. The proposed awning, as shown on the plan, would be 2.5 from the street. Similarly, with regard to the Reef Road, and the Zoning Board of Appeals approved a new awning that would be 5.7 feet from Reef Road street line, where the present setback from the road is 0. In addition, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted a variance of Section 28.6.12 with regard to parking for the conversion of the existing seasonal space around. It would equal approximately 8 spaces that our regulations would require, but they were waived. The area in question, as mentioned at the hearing, has been in use under our seasonal regulations, 7 months out of the year. The applicant states that any demand for parking occasioned by the restaurant use occurs during the evening hours, in their opinion, at which time there is existing on-street parking, adjacent streets, and a large municipal parking lot directly across the street. The areas of concern that were mentioned by at the meeting had to do with, first of all, in general, sufficient available parking in the area, even though, as I mentioned, the variance did relieve the applicant of 8-space requirement. There was some discussion about how available the additional parking was, and the other concern had to do with one of our regulations sections, the architectural design standard. In section 12.10.4 states all site improvements that are visible to the public from public roadways are designed to add to the visual amenities of the district, and there was some general discussion by the commission about the opinion of the architecture that was proposed, everything from the painting of the building to the actual design of the outdoor area. That, Mr. Chairman, was pretty much what was mentioned at the hearing.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny the application, the item 3A, or 3B, excuse me.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Kennelly,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. Commissioner Kennelly?
Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very much an aggressive advocate for outdoor dining in the town of Fairfield. I won't go into all the reasons, but the key being, above all else, is that we want to encourage a thriving streetscape, and one that, of course, that encourages economic, vitality of the town, makes the town more interesting to live. More importantly, I'm a great advocate for small business in town, and I very much want to see a thriving, vibrant, and diverse restaurant scene in the town. I think in addition to our identity as a suburban community and as a university town, this is an element that makes us a more interesting place to live, Fairfield a more interesting place to live. That all said, under questioning from myself and Vice Chairman Alessi, it became fairly evident that this proposal in its specific request, that is, to make permanent the amount of dining space that is allowed during outdoor dining season, did not address specifically the concerns that myself and the Vice Chairman raised related to the fact that the parking situation that they had managed to get this variance for might be very different in the winter months than it was in the summer. The downtown environment, anybody who has been driving around downtown in the last 2 weeks knows how very different it is to try to navigate downtown in the winter in Fairfield, and this has been a mild one, compared to the summer and spring and early fall months when we allow the outdoor dining, which allows for the greater patrons in these restaurants. So as a matter of specifics, the test made by the argument forwarded by the counsel for the applicant, which is, hey, we've done this, with outdoor dining, the parking worked fine. Yeah, outdoor dining worked when we weren't looking at the kinds of snowy winters and the much more difficult environment for driving and parking there is in the downtown area where many of these restaurants are. So from the specific application itself, to me, I can't support this. But my specific reason for making a motion to deny is what was raised by Vice Chairman Alessi in his questioning, and that is, he raised concerns that I raised as well, which is, I think neither of us like this idea. I think actually Commissioner Coleman also felt the same way. I kind of jumped her on the questions. Don't like the idea that that the outdoor dining space may essentially, once it's granted as a full-time permanent space for one restaurant, won't eventually be the rationale. This kind of an approval wouldn't be the rationale for many other restaurants that already have this outdoor dining approval to move ahead and to essentially kind of have them, like a game of checkers, kind of be, king me, here, now build a permanent structure with variances over the space which was outdoor dining. And I think that's a real problem. And as I think, I won't speak for the Vice Chairman other than to say that I was in full agreement with him about that concern. But ultimately, I want businesses, and I especially want restaurants to thrive, but having the patron area for an outdoor dining space for good weather months of the year is not the same thing as winter. And I don't like this approach. I don't like this idea of going to the zoning board of appeals, getting these waivers for just this one property. This is the kind of the way that the broad approach that under your chairmanship and our years together on this commission, we've worked broadly to kind of keep an eye on how outdoor dining is handled, would be lost. Obviously, with this as a permanent structure, council acknowledged that we would have no authority any longer if there were issues related to this significant amount of increase in terms of year-round patron space. So for all those reasons, I strongly urge my colleagues to vote in the affirmative for denial.
Commissioner Kennelly. Commissioner Lessie.
I think Commissioner Kennelly put it excellent. I see a problem with these kind of application comments towards us as well. I mean, we were looking to expand the business year-round by 45%. And, you know, there's a process that has to be gone through. And it's just not, hey, let's just get a waiver for the parking spots and do this and do that, and take away our exercise over the outdoor dining, like Commissioner Kelly said. I mean, I have a serious problem with that. And I see a trend coming that, you know, I'm not happy about it. And to be honest with you, I don't find it attractive at all. I mean, I don't think it's the kind of architectural design that we want to see downtown. If you want to do an extension on a building, make it look presentable, adhere to the guidelines of 12.10.4 on architectural standards, and come to us with an application that way and show that you have the adequate parking, as other restaurants have done. So I'm not going to be supporting that. And as far as the parking goes, I mean, with the snow on the ground that's now, I drove down Sherman Street the other day, and it's plowed, and along that street, you're missing parking spots now because of the plow. You can't park there. I mean, maybe the driver can get out, but he's going to have a tough time getting out, especially if you have a two-wheel vehicle. It's not going to happen. So, you know, we got snow yesterday. We're expecting more snow tomorrow. So that's 6-8 spots along that street that we're losing right now. So as far as parking goes, I mean, it just creates, there's not enough spots to cover this restaurant for almost doubling the size of its business year-round. And as far as, you know, 25.7.7 in our zoning regulations is that I don't think that this harmonizes with the neighborhood, this type of structure. So for all these reasons, I'm going to vote to deny this, and I urge that our commissioners do the same, because this is just opening up a floodgates that we're just going to see, you know, coming towards us. That's going to change the look of our downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lessie. Commissioner Coleman?
You'll recall that at the time of your presentation, I expressed the thought that this was an aesthetic step backward. And I thought about it and realized that most of my objection was really to the changing the color of the paint and the elimination of the Oceana sign and the brick parapet, which had nothing really to do with the sheeting that would enclose the structure. I agree with what my fellow commissioners have said about the parking. That said, there is a decent-sized lot across the street, and when the snow is at its worst is when I think diners are least likely to want to sit outside for dining anyway. So much to my surprise and everybody else's, I put more weight on maintaining the viability of a restaurant in Fairfield. Restaurants seem to fold in Fairfield at an alarming rate, and I felt that the need to maintain viability by giving them added seating area and therefore added profitability outweighed my reaction to some of the aesthetics. If it were on the post road, I'd probably be a little bit fussier about the temporary siding, but the fact that it's somewhat off the post road was mitigating to me, and so I'm going to vote to approve it.
Thank you very much. Yep. Commissioner McAleese.
I think I wasn't as bothered by the aesthetics. I actually kind of liked the drawings as they were presented. But for me, the parking is really the main issue, and I'm going to I want to make sure I say this correctly, approve the motion to deny the...
Right, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, okay. Very good, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Barretts?
Yeah, I have some mixed feelings on this one. You know, the restaurant has been in existence for a while, and they've had outdoor dining there for 10 years. But as we said, with our outdoor dining, we have that annual approval process that we have that. And the commission has been very supportive and encouraging to seasonal outdoor dining, and we get a lot of benefits. I can't enumerate them as well as Commissioner Nally did, but again, it makes for a more vibrant community. Actually, we're the envy of a lot of our neighboring communities because of our outdoor dining. That being said, I'm not sure that, you know, our effort to encourage this really was to create permanent patron space and increase. There is a bonus given to them, you know, to be able to have the seasonal outdoor dining and not to require so much parking for the first, I can't remember what, 150 square feet. So yeah, so we do try to encourage it, but permanent patron space, I'm not sure we do. Again, I have nothing with the aesthetics of the color. We don't regulate that anyway. They could just go paint the color of the building any color they want anyway. So it's not really a point of that. I just don't think that's what we want to be doing. It's not even a question of, you know, precedent. It's just like looking at this now, I'm not sure we want to be creating permanent outdoor, permanent patron space where before we had seasonal outdoor dining. So for that reason, I would support the motion to deny.
Thank you. I won't belabor all the comments. I agree with most of the comments regarding the reasons for denial. The significance about seasonal outdoor dining and the allowance for parking and so forth is also because during those warmer summer months and the nice weather, people are walking more. You know, in the winter, everybody's driving to the restaurant, and you need that more parking, and it's that much more difficult in the wintertime, as my fellow commissioners have articulated. So yeah, I agree. I'm trepidatious about the, you know, sending a message to others to do the same, but I'm also not basing my decision here on a precedent, because I don't think that we're bound by it in that way. My decision is based solely on the facts of this application. I just don't think that this is appropriate for this space, and I will also support the motion. Anybody else? We're ready to vote? So the motion is to deny, so a vote in the affirmance is to deny. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
And any abstentions? Okay. So the item is denied 5 to 1, 1, 2,
6 to 1.
6 to 1, 6 to 1. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is 3335 Beaumont Street, special permit application of Beachside Estates LLC pertaining to the construction of a 4-story mixed-use commercial and residential building in the design commercial district.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I'll briefly go over what was presented to you at the public hearing. The owner of the property located at 3335 Beaumont Street makes this application for approval of a mixed-use development consisting of approximately 3,600 square feet of office space to be located on the ground and first floor of the proposed new structure, with 3 residential units located on the second and third floor. The total building area would be 6,995 square feet. The property consists of 11,331 square feet and is located in a design commercial district. 2 residents are presently located on the property, and they would be demolished. The use as proposed is permitted under our section 12.4.3 business and professional office use, and section 12.4.18 residential use, again subject to approval of our section 25 special permit requirements. Proposed residential units need to comply with all provisions of section 12.4.18 pertaining to such residential units in a mixed-use development. Essentially, no more than 50% of the building area can be dedicated to the residential use, and no residents on the first floor. As shown on the plans, a total of 17 on-site parking spaces are provided pursuant to our provision of section 28.6.1 of the regulations. 6 spaces are required for the 3 residential units. However, the applicant is proposing 3 parking spaces. The applicant is requesting, as per our regulations, a 50% reduction in the number of required residential parking spaces. Section 28.6.1 state that this is at the Commission's discretion. The Commission must find that the proposed number of spaces is sufficient and would avoid any undue traffic congestion. Also, as per section 25.7.7, which I know the Commission is very familiar with, I'll just briefly overview it for you. It must be shown on the site and architectural plans that the proposed development shall be of such character as to harmonize with the neighborhood, to accomplish a transition in character between areas of unlike character, protect property values in the neighborhood, to preserve and enhance the appearance and beauty of the community, and to avoid undue traffic congestion. That, Mr. Chairman, very briefly, was what was presented to you at the public hearing.
Thank you very much. And I have a motion.
I move to deny the application.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Coleman, second by Commissioner Kennelly. Commissioner Coleman?
I thought it was an interesting building. I think it badly fails the harmony test. It's too large for the location, and the architecture is very much at odds with the more colonial-looking houses on the block. The question was also asked how we felt about mixed-use buildings, and for my 2 cents, I of course support mixed use, but if mixed use leads to a larger building for this site, I would lean more toward the applicant in any future applications doing a smaller commercial building, smaller in scale, and the architecture more harmonious if mixed use is going to drive toward a larger site. So I think because of incompatibility with the neighborhood, it should be denied.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennelly?
2 things. I'm not going after you again, Jackie, and 2, I completely agree. It's exactly it.
Thank you. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, I'll just say, Mr. Wagner, in the minutes, I did have to leave during the middle of the presentation, but I am fully caught up on it, so I can vote on this
Excellent.
application.
Thank
And
you.
as far as my feelings about the application, it's similar to what Commissioner Coleman stated. This is a 4-story building on a residential street. It doesn't really meet the test of harmonizing or a transition in character. Where you have a commercial zone bordering on a residential zone, there's supposed to be a transition. I think it's actually a very attractive building, just not on that particular street. If we're, and again, mixed use is something we want to encourage. If it was a 2-story building, ground floor commercial, top floor residential, I don't know how big it was or anything like that, I'd certainly be more inclined to support it, but I don't think that this particular application meets the standards set forth in 25.7.7, so I won't support it.
Thank you. Commissioner McAleese?
I think I'm not going to support this also, but for slightly different reasons. I think it's a fantastic building. I think aesthetically it would be exciting to have this kind of architecture in Fairfield, but I think from a scale issue, and I think we heard some of that with some of the public comment too, that people weren't necessarily against the building as much as the size, the sheer size of the building in terms of 4 stories, and the impact on traffic and parking, which I think is unclear. Like, it doesn't seem to me that they were able to fit the number of spaces in, but I just feel like the streets are going to be crowded, neighbors are going to lose parking in front of their houses, so I think I can't approve it for that reason.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I just agree with my fellow commissioners, and I see parking as a serious problem on that, for this application, so I'm going to vote to deny this as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I generally agree. The comments that we heard at the public hearing were interesting, I found. The neighbors, I think, might be the best judge of this harmonization and transition with the neighborhood. I mean, they're in the best position. It's their neighborhood, and they were against it. They didn't believe that this did harmonize, and I would agree with that. I think it is a matter of scale. The architecture is different, it's interesting. I don't necessarily appreciate it as much as perhaps Commissioner McAleese does, but I think it's a problem of scale. I also agree that it doesn't harmonize with the neighborhood. So I'm going to agree with the motion. Anyone else have any comments? Are we ready to vote?
Mr. Chairman, before you act, I just want to clarify one thing. There's two sections that I mentioned. One was the 2577, which you pretty much outlined. The other thing is, I think you should make a specific finding. There is a request for a 50% reduction in the parking. I know you mentioned that you don't feel that there's sufficient parking, but I think part of your motion to deny is to also to deny the request for the 50% reduction in the residential parking.
Okay. You think that's significant as a procedural step, even though the application is being denied on harmonization?
Well, I mean, it's a reason. I mean, they're requesting, it's a finding that you would need, if you wanted to approve it, it would be a finding you'd have to make that, that you felt reducing the parking by 50% for the residential use was appropriate.
Okay.
I'm assuming here you don't feel that way, but I just thought you might
Right.
want to
Okay.
articulate that.
So do we want to then amend the motion to specify on
No, I
those
think it just
grounds?
could be a reason for denial.
All right, okay. So then, should we take I agree. So if that's important to be noted for the record, Commissioner Kennelly, do you agree with that? Jackie's motion, sorry, I thought you were second. Jackie?
I agree with it, and if it helps to amend the motion,
But I think you might have a problem, and I might too.
No,
You-
it's,
right, because you
I don't,
like-
it's not really an amended motion, they get the sense of the body for what our reasons for deny, so in case we deny
Right.
this,
It's a
they're trying to get the findings we would.
Yeah.
Kind of all
It's
stated
not a-
it, though, is an issue, though.
It's specifically outlined in your regulations, so I
Right.
thought you might want to.
It's not a, yeah, it's not really amending to the motion, but it's a finding we make, like, they asked for a 50% reduction in parking. We've heard some comments that we didn't think the parking was sufficient. Well, if you think that their motion to reduce the parking was okay, well, then that doesn't make sense. So you're saying that, we don't agree with reducing the parking because we think parking is an issue, so. In effect, it's reinforcing what was said.
Sorry for any confusion, it's just
Yeah.
section
No, that's okay.
2861 basically specifically talks about the request for a
Yeah.
reduction.
So, and that's why I asked as a matter of procedure, because we don't typically make motions on specific findings, but at the same time, I think a general sense of the body is that it, in part, is a problem of scale, being too large, that largeness contributes to a problem of parking, that a 50% reduction for this building would not be appropriate because of the scale of the building. Right. Does anyone disagree with that?
Right, I mean, can I just ask one question?
One thing I want to make clear, though, in this vote is, counsel for the applicant wanted direction about, if this was an ongoing process for the applicant.
Right.
So, like Commissioner Barrett's, I'm at least open to the idea of residential. It was an attractive little colonial or building with one level of residential above. I might be willing to grant that, something. So what we're saying is that it's clearly tied, the scale, as the Commissioner's saying,
Yes.
impacts why this time we are uncomfortable. Not that broadly we do not think that an in-scale, more like the neighborhood building that had residential in the, okay, just want to make sure.
No, and that's an excellent point.
Okay, I just want to make sure, but your point is well taken.
Right.
I can vote for that.
Yep, and that's an excellent point, because applicant did request that if there was an issue here, that we provide some guidance, and I think it is clear, based on the comments, that the reason that we don't find in this circumstance that 50% reduction is appropriate is because of the scale. And we clearly, not just here, but in past applications, support mixed use. We want to encourage that in our downtown area, and we are with this applicant as well, but this is just not appropriate. Okay. All right, then the motion on the table is to deny, so a vote in the affirmance is to deny the motion, to deny the application. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The item is denied unanimously. Next item is compliance, 325 Reef Road, compliance application of Mark Foreman for a sign plan.
Okay, this item, this is approximately 5 foot high by 8 foot wide ground sign to identify tenants at this property. This was on your agenda at our last meeting. There was a concern that was raised regarding the proximity to any adjacent parking spaces that we could not answer at that time. So subsequent to that, we went out and took a picture and sent it out to you to show that there is in fact parking along that northerly property line, but it doesn't start for a distance of approximately 30 feet back from the sidewalk. So an 8-foot wide sign at a 10-foot required minimum setback would not interfere with any of the striped parking. Their application, I think, missed the mark in that they thought that the minimum required setback was 25 feet. If you're inclined to approve this sign, I would recommend it be set back a minimum of 10 feet, which would provide enough space for it not to interfere with those parallel spaces along that driveway.
Thank you. Can I have a motion? Motion to approve by Commissioner Coleman,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Barron's. Commissioner Coleman, comments? No?
Not really.
Okay.
They answered the question that I raised 2 weeks ago. I'm satisfied.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Barron's?
I think we do have to recommend that they change the setback of the sign, though, don't we?
Yes,
Their application is for 10.
They proposed it at 25. I think it's a better fit at 10.
Right.
And so if you're inclined to agree, then you would make that part of the motion. If you don't, then you can leave it as is. But
I would tend to agree that that would be less interference with parking. I think the applicant should be okay with that if we for the conditions.
Yeah.
So, do you agree to an amendment to your motion to approve with the condition that the setback be amended to 10 feet?
I do.
Okay, and Commissioner Barron's?
I
Yes?
do.
Okay, motion so amended. Any other comments? Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstention? The item is approved with conditions. Next items are public hearing. Do we need a minute to reconfigure? All right. We'll move to the public hearing portion. First item is 75 Senior Place, re-subdivision application of Adam Mayer for 2 lots in an A zone. So for those of you who are here for the public comment, the applicant will, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah. Commissioner Corcoran has recused himself from this item. For the members of the public that are here, the applicant will present their application, then any member of the public will have an opportunity to take the podium and speak. Just keep your comments germane, there's no time limit, and then the applicant will have a rebuttal, after which the hearing on the item will be closed. Okay?
Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Raymond Rizzio, Office 1 Post Road, Fairfield, Connecticut. Happy to be before you tonight representing Adam Mayer for this project that's gone on for quite some time. Probably predates a few of the commissioners. This was an application that was earlier heard maybe in 2007, 2008, was denied for reasons that, and then appealed. The courts ruled in favor of our client in April of 2008, and this subdivision was awarded. We then ran out of time, so our client went to get a reapproval, came back before this commission in 2000, let me give you that, 2009, which I have a copy of that approval for you. March 2009, this commission granted the approval for this 2-lot subdivision at 75 Senior Place. As we know, this is a straight subdivision. You're acting in your more so-called much more so in your administrative capacity versus your discretionary special permit capacity.
I don't mean to screw you up, but you blocked everybody with this if you put it over there.
What do you want me to do?
Just, if I can leave it here.
Where is it?
Thank you, it's just, it blocks the whole contribution. On the record.
Sure.
Thanks, Jerry.
All right. Anybody want me to stand?
No, Mike.
Okay. Get the microphone. All right. I know my wife says I gained weight, now I'm blocking the camera, I got in big trouble. So, here we go. So, very straightforward. 2-lot subdivision, meets all the regulations, exceeds there's 25,000 square feet of total land. Part of the land, just to give you a little history, is owned by the state of Connecticut. Our client's under contract to purchase this from the state of Connecticut. There are sightline easements that are reserved. Sightline calculations have been submitted to the town engineer, reviewed by the town engineer, and as of today, there is a, which probably Jim will give, staff will give you, is has been approved by the town engineer, and all her comments, actually as of December 17th, have been addressed. So, There's no public improvements. This property fronts on Strathfield Road and Senior Place. It has adequate frontage on both, meets the 75-foot square, one new driveway being added on Strathfield Road. All the sight lines are as shown on Mr. Jane's map, which is also before you and has been reviewed by the town engineer. Other than that, we meet all the requirements. When you meet all the requirements in an A zone, or any zone, the straight subdivision, there's really not much in the way of discretion that would warrant the denial of this application. There's no interior traffic to worry about. It's a one driveway, split of two existing lots, a combination of this additional land from the state of Connecticut, and that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Barron's?
Yeah, Mr. Rogers, just a couple of questions, because I actually was here for, I think I've heard this 6 times, this particular application. And it was denied a couple of times.
No, once.
It was, yeah.
Denied once and then appealed.
It actually came before us a couple of times where the applicant withdrew it. I mean, it was here
Yeah.
a lot. It was denied and it was appealed, and the reason was that there was a sightline issue that the commission found. But then, in the decision, it was nice that we found a sightline issue, but there was nothing in our regulations at the time that said we could do anything about sightlines.
Correct.
So after that, pursuant to that, we actually changed our regulations to say sightlines must be approved by the town engineer.
Correct.
So, my,
Sightlines have been, sightlines are, plan has been drawn, shown, and submitted to the town engineer.
right. My question is, why is this back now? I didn't quite understand. We approved this in 2009, so why are we hearing it again?
5 years expire.
5 years expired.
Financial conditions, everything has worked its way out. Our client now would like to resubmit, move on with the project.
Okay, it's because of the expiration. So
Yes.
this is the same drawing, same maps as in 2009, but we have a current.
Same combination of properties. It's the state property, and our property. Nothing has changed.
But that drawing is from 2009.
The drawing goes back, there's some additional drainage that was submitted, requested by the town engineer, which was submitted.
Right, because this actually goes back, like, I think somebody said, it goes back originally to 2002.
Yeah, I mean, not that it's relevant, but since you're interested, there was issue about whether we could use this old, the access way that came off Senior Place, because there's a neighbor that had also used that driveway, even though it's an easement. That's all out of play. If you'll notice now, there's a driveway. Shows a house within the 75-foot square, shows a driveway coming off Strathfield Road, sight lanes all met and addressed.
Okay, and then all the maps are from 2009, but the town engineer reviewed it again and determined
It's
that.
as relates to this application, brand-new application, the lines may be in the same place, but all consistent with all your drainage requirements, all the drainage requirements have been met. Town engineer has looked at this as a totally new application and passed judgment on it, and it satisfies all of your requirements of a lot in a single A zone as of 2016.
Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Coleman?
Attorney Rizzo, maybe you could just help me with my map reading skills. On the map that you have up there now, there are a bunch of, to the top of the new property, new proposed house in green, there are a bunch of black lines.
Well, some of them,
Are those,
this is actually the site plan where you show to the town engineer that, so there's a couple maps. You have a survey which shows the existing, the way things exist, and the way things exist without a house. Then you have to prove to the town engineer that a house can be built on this lot, and that you can support the drainage, the driveway, and shows for all the improvements and grading that has to be done. And so that's,
And I might be off base here, but I think the inquiry is, why are the grading lines on the interior of that particular lot darker than everywhere else? Yeah, I just not seen it before.
You mean these right
Is that-
here?
That's what you're talking
The
about?
lighter hashed lines are the existing grades, the darker lines are the proposed grades.
Darker is how you, that's how you show
Thank you.
what your proposed changes are.
Well, yeah, we've not seen that exactly identified in that way before. Thank you.
It's a greater contrast than typical lighting.
Okay, that was your question.
That was my question, thank you.
Very good.
For all those reasons, if the commission has any other additional questions, we respectfully request the commission grant this application because it satisfies all of your subdivisions, and zoning and subdivision standards.
Very good. Thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Attorney Rizzio. Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard on this application? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Chairman.
Good evening.
members of the
Just
commission.
state your name and address.
Yes,
to the-
my name is David Volderauer. I live at 59 Senior Place. My property abuts the property known as 75 Senior Place. And as it was mentioned earlier by the attorney, this has been denied several times in the past. However, with the recent, well, not recent, but the appeal that was found in favor of the plaintiff, then in 2009, the commission did go ahead and unanimously approve the application. However, on this reapplication, it was mentioned by the attorney that this new application meets the 75-foot requirement for a building lot. Now, to do that, the applicant has to purchase the state strip of property to be able to make that requirement. And at this time, this property has not been purchased. It was contracted, purchased back in 2002, and has still not been purchased. And without a purchase of that property, this does not meet this minimum square requirement for a building lot. Now, until the property is purchased also, a map cannot be presented for a final approval. And I strongly oppose this application and urge you to deny it based on this fact. There are other issues involved. Back when this was approved in 2009, and I'm reading off of the town minutes, that there were conditions offered by the applicant. The deed to Lot B2 shall reference the responsibility of the property owner to maintain the adequate sight lines for the driveway to Stratfield Road. And there was also 25 other conditions that need to be met. When this was denied in 2006, it was stated by the commission in the minutes, there has been no demonstration that the proposed lot shall be of such character that it can be used for building purposes without danger to the health and safety of the public or the occupants pursuant to section 2.4 of the subdivision regulations. Neither driveway proposed has adequate width for the number of lots served. And number two, the proposed lot B2 is a functional rear lot, and the driveway access does not meet the criteria of section 2.1.1.6 of the subdivision regulations. Again, there was numerous neighbors opposed to this application, and there still are. And I strongly deny or urge you to deny this application based on what I have just stated. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer them for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Any other member of the public wish to be heard on this item? Nope. Thank you very much. Attorney Rizzio?
Chairman, and members of the commission, in rebuttal, actually probably 3 quick points. Number one, State of Connecticut signed the application, a copy of the application's on file, in your file. The State of Connecticut, as you know, as long as the properties merge or the subdivision is caused, I certainly have no issue, a condition of approval that there be a merger of the 2 lots. That you don't even need that. People combine lots all the time. As long as the property owners agree that this will be the new configuration of the property, they certainly have the right to sign an application and make a joint application together. State of Connecticut signed off on that. It's in your file.
One second.
Is that a question?
Go ahead. You,
I have a question, but I don't
on the,
want.
exactly. On,
Go ahead,
on
I-
this item, on this point?
Yes.
Yes,
Sure.
Commissioner Barron.
Say the State of Connecticut, because the member of the public raised a point about the 70, now our lots require a 75-foot square.
Correct, and
But
there's
since the approval of the application in 2009, the regulations have actually changed, and now we not only require a 75-foot square, each property must have a 75-foot frontage on a street.
No problem.
So has that requirement been met?
Sure, we have like 100 and, one of the lots has 137 feet, another one, one has 167, the other one has 197. You've got to remember, you got Senior Place here with frontage, you got Strathfield Road here with
Yeah.
frontage, you have frontage here. In green, you may not be able to see it, it sets off the 75-foot squares. 75-foot squares are clearly evidenced, and a lot of the previous comments by the other owner had to deal with the use of this. There's a use to have a joint driveway. This property, the new B2 lot, has its own independent driveway off Strathfield Road. The driveway meets city-town standards. Driveway's been looked at by the town engineer. The sight lines pass. Everything is consistent with your regulations.
So, if the state-owned property is that which is from the southwesterly border, right, along,
It's that whole, this whole piece right in here.
right,
The state of Connecticut's selling that to our client.
right, and then, the walkway that's depicted right now, is that a sidewalk?
It's a sidewalk that's on the state property.
Right, and
But
so.
still satisfies as, this is the state highway, so we still have frontage on
And-
Strathfield Road.
Yeah, and so that's really the analysis, right, I didn't know whether that was like a nature walkway but if it's a sidewalk.
Correct.
And the sidewalk's gonna stay, right?
Correct.
Once this.
Correct, this is all within the state right-of-way. The state has an extremely large right-of-way. They never envisioned that they will ever expand the road on the other side of this, and still, if you look from the sidewalk, they still probably have, I'm not the best with a scale, but they probably have 30 to 40 feet from the sidewalk to our property line,
Right.
with which to expand the right-of-way. I mean, you could fit four lanes here within this section of Strathfield Road, and most of that had to do with the curb.
Okay.
So we have a sightline easement that's proposed and will be reserved.
Right, in order to maintain the right-of-way, you're gonna acquire the land, grant the right-of-way back to the state for the purposes of
Precisely, correct.
of the widening, and as part of that, there will be a commitment to maintain the
Correct.
right-of-way in such a manner as to maintain the sight lines
Correct.
for the driveway.
Remember, this is a state highway, traffic permit, encroachment permit from the state to get the driveway, and with that comes the requirement to have a sightline easement and maintain the sight lines in the future.
Okay.
It's pretty
Question?
I say pretty straightforward. It really is, because like, keep in mind, there's no public improvements except for the private drive coming onto Strathfield Road. The sidewalks are already in. I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
Very good. Commissioner Ford, can you use your microphone?
Can you hear me? That's one driveway to Strathfield Road, right?
Correct. There's already an existing driveway on Senior Place that services the existing house.
Well, there's a driveway there. I mean, I drove by the property, well, I drive by it every day, but that, the proposed driveway, I mean, it currently exists.
Right, but there has to be an improved driveway that meets town standards with regard to grade, with regard to width, with regard, so that, for all intents and purposes, you could almost consider the other one a path. I mean, this has got to be a driveway that meets all the town standards.
And the driveway on the property to the left, towards Senior Place?
Yes.
That is, did I hear you mention that that's an easement to Senior Place?
No, see, there's a right-of-way that runs along the neighbor's property that would allow
Okay.
access over to this property.
Okay, so there's, all right.
But you're not gonna use it.
We're not relying on that. That's a private right between two property owners that's not being touched or addressed or relied upon for the legal access necessary to establish this lot.
Okay,
That's
thank
probably
you.
the
That
best way to
was,
put it.
That is, I think, the way to put it, and I think that if I'm understanding the background well enough, the right-of-way in the back there was the basis of egress in the
At one point, it was
prior
considered, and that was a lot of the back and forth. In the end,
which is why it was considered a back lot
yes,
off Senior Place.
correct.
okay.
And now it's not,
Correct.
because there's going to be a proposed new driveway that goes directly to Stratford
Correct.
Road. Okay, for Commissioner Cannelli.
Attorney Rizzo, can you just explain where, I'm sorry I'm missing this, where on lot B2 is the driveway to Stratfield, is it on Stratfield?
See, you'll see it here.
Next image. You
You
don't
see
have
the-
it on that
Is
one.
that what it is?
You gotta,
That's the
you
next
you
one.
have the, yeah, you have to go to the actual site plan, and you'll see the cut. You'll see-
Can I ask you, was there a public hearing as part of the state's willingness to turn this property over to your
Oh,
client?
the public,
Was there
there's
public
a,
notice?
there's public, well, I don't know about the public notice, there's a letter sent to the town would have the right to buy this strip first, town elected not to buy the strip.
Was there ever an opportunity for neighbors who might have been concerned? I run by here, and the idea that you're blithely talking about, oh, gee, there'll be room for 4 lanes or whatever else there, that curve right there is horrible already for pedestrians and for,
But
driving.
for the purposes of
To have
this
a
sub-
driveway going out of there, in my view, I don't know how I assume Laura Pooley went on the numbers, but I
You gotta remember,
as I say, I
it's-
run by here every day, I can't imagine sticking a driveway in there. I don't see how it's remotely safe, but.
It's a state road,
But I'm.
encroachment permit from the state's
So there was,
authority.
so
as
there
to
was,
who
so
can
there
come
was
in and out of it.
there was no public hearing process or something where the neighbors would be able to, I mean, this is all, we all own this property as members of the public of the state of Connecticut. How did the deal work out that the state just handed your client this for a purchase
Well,
price?
they
How
went
did that
through the
work? It would seem like
procurement.
these are competing interests
I
here.
can't, I can tell you, they went through the procurement process, they have a legal contract with the state, and they've signed an application for this lot.
Because I don't think the town of Fairfield can just sell a piece of its own property without the public having a chance to weigh in on this. Obviously, you're significantly changing the character of a neighborhood. that's
Beyond my
already
level,
going through
beyond my
some
level of
changes down there.
expertise.
Oh,
I mean,
really?
I can't tell you what the state procurement process is. I can
Well,
tell you that the
just
state
curious.
signed the application. The state is the legal property owner of the property, and the state is consenting to this property being split into, combined and sold off. That's really what we're about tonight.
But, hold on a second, your client doesn't own it, though, right? Is that it? You're saying this is sort of joint application between your client and the state?
Sure, yes, exactly.
The state is part of your
The
application?
state signed the application, correct.
They're an applicant in this, is what
So
If we are the applicant, the state is an owner, you have multiple, I can tell you how many applications that you have signed by a contract purchaser, signed by 2 owners, signed by people combining properties. The state is no different than any other individual that owns this property. The state is electing to sell this property to our client. The state has signed off as an application as they're legally required to do as a property owner. My client as the applicant is bringing this through the process to get the 2 lots that they're entitled to pursuant to your regulations and the subdivision regulations.
Commissioner Cannelli, there is a second application here.
Like I said, I'm sticking to an application for 2 lots. If there's an issue with regard to the procurement process, I think it's irrelevant as relates to tonight. I can tell you this, state signed the application, our client's the legal applicant, the 2 legal property owners signed the application, and we're moving forward as if we were any other property owner looking to subdivide 2 lots. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner McAleese.
I mean, staying on that same line of questioning, So will we eventually, is there some document, a bill of sale or something that shows that the state transferred this little piece of land to the?
What will happen, can remember, no different, the state is an entity, no different than if this is XYZ Corporation or Joe Smith. Prior to the map, we would have to show to the town that these two lots have been merged, that there's an application signed, the property owner has to sign a subdivision map before it's recorded that this is the status of the title as presented. Typically, the town looks for certificates of title when they have issues like that to confirm, because they don't do independent research, to confirm that the property is now in the property owner's name as the property is recorded. So whoever owns this, these are the property lines. State has the right to sell this off, the town of Fairfield, anybody has the right to sell this off. Our client will be the legal owner and has to show that at some point prior to the recording that all of this is going to be owned by one owner. The property owner will sign the map will get recorded, and then the two lots will exist.
Then, if I may, perhaps I'm being dense then. So shouldn't this, on our agenda, read subdivision application of Adam Mayer and the state of Connecticut?
No, because I will tell you, the only requirement is that you have an interest in the property, whether you be a contract purchaser, whether you be an owner. And I will tell you, on a lot of your development projects, the applicant many times is not the property owner, but the property owner must acknowledge by signing its permission to let the application go forward.
Correct. So,
Yeah, just one.
Commissioner McAleese?
Yes.
So we do have actually
I see
two
that, yeah.
applications, right? One signed by Mr. Meyer.
Right.
And the other signed by, it looks like Mr. Cabela as a representative of DOT from Newington, Connecticut.
Okay.
And the applicant, they are co-applicants.
Yeah,
for
the
the
only
plan.
thing that makes this a little different than what you probably see and don't even question on most of your applications is because of the state of Connecticut. If you we take a hard look at actually a lot of your applications, your applicant and your property owners typically, or a great deal of the time, aren't the same people.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I want to
Yes.
go back to the first question that Commissioner McAleese asked, and an issue that came up earlier tonight, is that the reason we're here again with essentially the same subdivision is that since the last approval of the subdivision, they didn't close the deal with the state, therefore they could not record the map within the time frame prescribed, therefore that approval expired. That's why they're back before us again. And the map, in what Attorney Rizzio said, we won't accept the map for recording until that transaction occurs. That's why the map didn't become of record
Because they never
under the previous
consummated sale.
approval, because they didn't close the sale.
Commissioner McAleese,
Which is exactly
They'll
your
have-
question.
So that's why it didn't happen, and it will have to happen before we would accept the map for recording. If it doesn't happen again, then.
Right.
The
And,
sa-
and so ostensibly, there is a risk that we all go through this whole process and they don't close the deal again, and 5 years goes by and the thing expires again.
Yes.
And then we see you again in 5.5 years.
Which I'm sure you can't wait for, as we turn a two-lot subdivision into about half an hour, I apologize.
Right.
It's 270 days. Once the map's recorded, they have 5 years to do the improvements, but they have 3 90-day periods in which to record the map.
And the only wrinkle is whether the regulations have changed since your prior approval, which they have a little bit, and we need to make sure that the same plan now complies with all
Correct,
of
which
our
is-
current regulations.
Which is the town engineer has required additional drainage and things like that, which has all been met.
Right. So, Commissioner Barretts.
Yeah, I mean, I was just also note, if you're using and I understand why you're using the 2009 map, where it's got the zoning grid on the 2009 map, it says minimum frontage 20 feet, and that's what it was in 2009, but now it's 75 feet. I mean, evidently, that technical defect aside, the numbers still show that it's in excess of 75 feet.
Yeah, I would, and I will tell you that's an excellent point, and if Commissioner Barretts would like us to reflect that in the map prior to recording, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, well, you should. I mean, certainly
Yes.
the map that gets recorded should have current data.
Correct. I don't think that makes the application defective, because I think
through testimony and through presenting the map, it's a typographical error versus anything defective, and the numbers are called out in front.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Well, I mean, it is, but we addressed the issues that were raised during public comment. So, I mean, sorry.
Thank you very much, folks.
right.
Appreciate your time.
Very good. I'll close the public hearing on this item.
Excuse me, do you guys you don't need to leave this thing.
Next item, 8 Bloomfield Drive, compliance application, Turk Properties LLC for a 9-unit set-aside residential development pursuant to CT General Statutes 830G in an R3 zone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I am here tonight, I'm an attorney in Connecticut, in Fairfield, representing the applicant, Turk Properties LLC. The principal in interest at Turk Properties is Turk Perlikalik, who is seated in the front row with his entire family, who you will meet at some point tonight. And this application is, as the call indicates, a compliance site plan review application proposing your approval of a 9-unit multifamily residential rental development at 8 Bloomfield Drive. This property is obviously in close proximity to Camfield Drive, where a similar 8-30G application was ultimately stipulated for approval, and the documentation with regard to that matter, Landco Holdings, is contained in my material at pages 28 and 29, I guess, 29. The development itself, as you'll hear about tonight, is going to consist of 7 2-bedroom and 2 1-bedroom units. The 2 dwellings currently located on the property will be demolished. And as the call indicates, and we'll talk about tonight, this project is submitted pursuant to the provisions of the Connecticut Affordable Housing Land Use Appeals Act, Section 8-30G, which I know the Commission is familiar with, but for purposes of the record, I'll take a few moments in a few seconds to elaborate on. You will find located in my material at page 3 our affordability plan, which is submitted to you in accordance with the statute. It's found on page 3 through 21. It's extensive. It documents how the units will be calculated to meet affordable standards. It calculates how the units will be marketed to ensure affordable access, and all the other things that are required in the statute. And I do commend it to you because it also notes that we are making 2 of the 3 units affordable to the higher standard that is requested in the statute. We believe, based upon experience, that these units, the affordable ones and the market ones, will basically be occupied by 2 groups of people. One are people over 50 years of age, and others are younger people who were born, raised in Fairfield, would like to stay. So it's an important application beyond the affordability components, which are critical, because we're addressing here a need for rental housing in the town that serves a very important marketplace. And we want to keep people in Fairfield. We want our young people to stay. We want our older people to stay and continue to contribute with their tax dollars and their volunteerism and so on. I think also these units have special potential for town employees, be they the affordable units or the non-affordable units. Police, fire, teachers, again, people who work in our town but really need housing. You'll hear from Phil Cerrone, our architect, in a minute. He'll give you an overview with renderings, but in concept, what we have here is 3 buildings. Building A, B, and C. Building A has 3 townhouses, Building 2 has 2 townhouses, and Building C has 2 townhouses and 2 1-bedroom units. The 2-bedroom units run approximately 1,900 square feet. Phil can correct me if I'm wrong on any of these numbers. The 1-bedrooms are approximately 620 square feet. All of the units, as proposed, have 1-car garages, and the total parking on the site is 14 on-site spaces. Let me address parking, if I may. Our ratio for parking is 1 1/2 parking spaces per unit. As Mr. Galante, who you'll hear from tonight, is here to tell you. The CITE, the Bible, if you will, standard for multifamily residential is 1.2 units. That's the ratio. 1.2 is the ratio. And indeed, the 1.2 ratio is what was applied and is in existence at the Garden Homes affordable housing project on Fairchild Avenue that was approved. And in fact, it is the same standard ratio, 1.2, that was proposed and approved by the court in the other Garden Home case, Southport, that'll be coming back to you shortly on a remand for the fire lane. So we do know, we believe that based upon the occupancy and the style of these units, the ratio of 1.5 exceeds not only the professional standard for this type of development, but it exceeds the standard that is applicable to two other affordable, or at least one other affordable housing developments in town. That's the Fairchild Avenue one, and one that is under review, but has been judicially approved. The building will be equipped, as you'll hear, with high-efficiency heating and air conditionings, and all the buildings will, of course, be sprinklered. The exteriors, and I don't want to take all of Phil's thunders, but they're really very nice. They're asphalt architectural roof shingles, divided light windows with shutters, clapboards, sidings on some units, brick veneer on others. And Phil will go through all of those. And obviously, as the law requires, the standard and finish externally and internally of the affordable units will be the same as the market units. And that's required by the statute, and that's the way it will be here. I want to take a few seconds. We've been through a lot of these applications, and I appreciate the Commission's patience. This one, not that all of them haven't been, but that would be a lie. This one is a pure pleasure to bring to you for two reasons. One, I think it's indicative of what the affordable housing statute can do. Projects in neighborhoods, developments in neighborhoods that in their scale and intent are within the reasonable bounds of what the neighborhood would like to have and what the town would like to have. The other reason it's very important to me to bring this to you tonight is because of the Parlikalic family. I just want to say a few words about them, and it's a great story. Turk, who's sitting right there, came to Fairfield in 1992, almost 25 years ago. You may know that he owns and operates the Pizza Palace up on Black Rock Turnpike. And you may also know that that restaurant and that owner and this family is very, very supportive of the community. They've employed dozens of Fairfield High School students throughout the year. They donate to numerous Fairfield High School sports teams, Relay for Life, and are always ready to be asked and respond affirmatively to numerous churches and synagogues in the town. Their family background is amazing, and the reason I'm telling you this is this family's development, and it will be their development. They're going to manage it, they're going to run it, and they're going to treat it with the care that they treat their current tenants, who I'll talk about in a second, and some of whom are here today. But I just want to say a few words because it's a great story. All of the children, and they're all seated there, have been graduates of the Fairfield Public School System. And after they've graduated from college, apropos of, I think, a lot of people who hopefully will be interested in these very units, they've returned back to their home, and they now work in Greenwich, Stamford, and Trumbull. There's three wonderful daughters. There's Oslam, okay? Oslam is a HR generalist for Family Centers in Greenwich, which is a nonprofit organization that offers education and human services to families throughout Fairfield County. She graduated from the University of New Haven and has a master's degree in psychology. Then there's Iqbal. There's Iqbal. She graduated from UConn in May of 2015, and she is an HR recruiter in Stamford for a recruiting agency. And then there's Osnur. And Osner, a fellow bar member, recently passed the bar and practices business immigration law in Trumbull. She attended Quinnipiac and went to New England School of Law in Boston. And she's now in the process, with everything else on her plate, of obtaining a real estate license for purposes of familiarizing herself with the ins and outs of real estate so she can be personally connected with the potential tenants who will rent in this building, in these buildings, and who will rent in the various other properties that the family owns. And then there's Osgur. Is Osgur here? Osgur's working. Osgur lives on Campfield Drive, in fact. in one of the rental families the family owns with his wife, and he works in the landscaping business. So it's a real family effort here. And one of the things that's indicative of that is the daughters. I won't give Turk credit for this because he was too busy at the restaurant where he is about 20 hours a day. But the daughters spent literally weeks going door to door throughout the neighborhood. This is the original. With copies of the plans you're going to see tonight, speaking to neighbors. This was all done in anticipation of coming before you tonight. And this is a petition. I didn't count, I should have. You will, I'm sure. But there are literally, I think, hundreds of signatures here. And you'll note that the daughters, the Charlotte Taylor women, went above and beyond to call the duty here. And the reason I think that's important is not only that's the way in any kind of application, but particularly an affordable housing application, business should be done. But I think it's also indicative of the very hands-on approach that this family wants to take with regard to this particular development. They are no strangers to maintaining rentals. They presently maintain 8 units altogether, 2 on Greenlawn Drive, 2 on Campfield Drive, 2 on Beacon Square, and the 2 units that are presently located on this property. So I did want to take a few minutes just to kind of give you some sense that this is not a developer, running in and out of town, throwing them up and leaving. That they're here for the long haul. Their roots have been here for 25 years, and they are truly, not to make them blush, an amazing family. We had a code enforcement review here on September 15th, 2015. We've complied with the engineering comments that were there. We also visited early on in the process the fire marshal. His comments are contained not only in the code review meeting minutes, but you'll note at page 29 of my application material, there's an email from the fire marshal of April 6, 2015. We also, in this particular instance, received approval from the WPCA on June 24, 2015, with regard to the connection for this particular facility. I want to provide the commissioners a copy of the minutes, and you'll note under item 3, there is an approval by the WPCA allowing this project to connect to the sewer system.
Thank you.
8-30G. For the record, and for any of those commissioners who may be dealing with their first 8-30G application, the legislature 20 years ago determined that the need for affordable housing in communities was such that a statute should be enacted which set different ground rules with regard to land use applications involving qualified 8-30G applications. And indeed, to qualify under the current statute, you have to covenant at least 30% of the units in your development for 40 years to affordable rental or sale as calculated by the state standards based upon area median income. All that is laid out in our affordability plan. But what the statute says is that on appeal from a denial of an affordable housing application, it is the commission that shall have the burden of proof based upon the evidence of record before the commission that, and there's 3 things that you have the burden of proof on. 1, that the decision, the denial, is necessary to protect the substantial public interest in health, safety, and other matters which the commission may legally consider. And number 2, such public interest clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing. And number three, such public interest cannot be protected by reasonable changes to the affordable housing development. And this standard was just recently restated in the case that just came down on February 2nd, Brenmore, that's Brenmor Properties, LLC, versus the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Lisbon. And so that is the standard. I would like and hope to think that maybe that standard isn't quite as burdensome to this commission tonight with regard to this application as it may have appeared to be in some other applications. The statute has been rigorously applied by the courts in an effort to ensure that the legislative intent is met. But here, as we move on to this specific application, I think that it's an application that really works for this site, it's an application that works for the neighborhood, and it's an application that works for the town as the town continues to try to address the needs that we have for affordable housing in Fairfield. And again, just for purposes of the record, and it's all in the material, those needs have been very well documented. And I'll just briefly summarize without reading to you this 130 pages, which maybe you'll take a chance to read. But at page 101 of my documentation, I provide you with excerpts from the Affordable Housing Plan for Fairfield going all the way back to 1988, wherein it stated, the community has not accepted the town's role in providing or supporting the development of rental or for sale housing at below market rate. Our young people need affordable housing. Our single population needs affordable housing. At page 122 of my material, I give you the entire Town of Fairfield request for qualifications consultants to assist with an affordable housing plan, 2013, some 25 years after the affordable plan, wherein it stated in the RFP, the lack of affordable housing is a significant issue many communities face. This is especially true in Fairfield, where the average cost of a single-family home in 2012 topped $512,000. At page 126 of my material, I cite the 3 5-year strategic plan covering 2010 to 2015, as was submitted to HUD as a requirement of receiving a community development block grant. In that it is stated, and I quote, housing affordability is a widespread issue within Fairfield. Quote, the town does not have a large supply of rental housing, affordable or otherwise. However, much of what rental housing exists could be considered seasonal or student housing. At page 130 of my material, from the 3rd year CAPER report that was submitted to HUD in 2012, under goals, there is a lack of affordable rental housing in town, especially for persons with disabilities. Recommendation, encourage the preservation and or creation of affordable rental units. Without in any way being accusatory to the town we all love, the 2010 annual report of the Affordable Housing Committee, which is at page 117 of my material, lists affordable units in Fairfield and their location, and in fact notes that only 2.6% of our rental units are affordable in this town. Now, we did receive in 2010 a block grant from HUD for over $383,000, and this was funded in part based upon representations like those I've just described above, that the town supports affordable housing. Therefore, in utilizing this funding, I think it's important that we continue to try to take concrete steps to really address affordable housing under the statute, and to address the fact that we are, right now of the 22 municipalities receiving those block grants, we rank lowest in the percentage of affordable rental units at approximately 2.6%. So I think we have an opportunity to make strides here, and I think a project, a proposal, a development like this is one that hopefully you will agree after we've concluded our presentation is particularly palatable for purposes of achieving that goal, and to deal with the affordable housing statute in the way that I think many of its proponents envision that it would be done. Our presentation tonight would include Mr. Pete Romano, Atlantic, who will briefly overview for you our site plan, site engineering, plans for drainage and so on and so forth. I'll then ask Phil Cerrone, our architect, to give you a brief overview of the architectural design and interior floor plan of the units. And then I'm going to ask Michael Gawanti of Frederick P. Clark and Associates to summarize for you the findings of the traffic report and analysis that we've submitted for your review. And then we will be pleased to answer any other questions that you might have.
Can I just one question before he starts, just real simple. Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fallon, just so, I mean, just for anybody who may watch this on television for Fair TV and everything, you have 9 units that's replacing the residential home, or is that?
The 9 units replacing 2.
2, right.
Mm-hmm.
For the income restricted, for the affordable units, what would an individual pay theoretically? So just, I know there's formulas and everything, we can explain that, but let's see if we can give a number. So if I was watching this and was kind of curious about what would the affordable cost be to live in the units that would be set aside as affordable units?
I can definitely do that, and
Great,
I
thanks.
appreciate the question. If you look at the affordability plan, page 9 of your material, we calculate the monthly payments under the affordable standard for the 2-bedroom rental unit, and that would be for a person earning less than 60% of the Bridgeport MFI regional income. And as you can see, you go down that entire formula, which is the formula that the State Department of Housing requires, and it's line number 9. So the affordable rental for that 2-bedroom unit to that individual would be $1,121.
Okay.
If you turn the page 10, you'll see the 1-bedroom rental unit for persons earning less than 80%. Again, you follow the same pattern, and you'll see that the rental there, again, line 9, is $1,150. So that gives quantification to the standard of affordability for these units.
Thanks.
Mr. Romano.
Yes, thank you. You just drop me off. We'll pass them around.
Good evening. I am Pete Romano. I'm a principal with Land Tech. We're a civil and environmental and structural engineering firm out of Westport, Connecticut. We prepared the site plan and storm drainage, and I'm now going to repeat all the engineering stuff Mr. Fallon already talked to you about, but I'll be brief. It's pretty straightforward. The project is just under a half acre of land located on Bloomfield Drive. Fairly straightforward. We actually have the code enforcement report back that Laura Pooley from the engineering department had some comments. We've addressed all those comments. I can go through them if you wish. But essentially, we've taken a site, and in Fairfield, as you know, we need to contain the stormwater flows from anything from a 2-year storm up to a 100-year storm, and she made some comments on some of the calculations, and we've revised our plans to include all of those so that there's actually reduction off the site once the development is constructed. Access, of course, will be from here. There's about 14 parking spaces located on here. There'll be a large paved area in here, but access is out onto Bloomfield Drive. Storm drainage will be collected in the front of the property. All the roof leaders will be connected in here, so we actually reduce all the flows. We don't impact any storm drainage out on Bloomfield Drive. We don't add any more water out to Bloomfield Drive. Everything is collected in the front of the property there. And you were connected to the sanitary sewer. There's a letter I think Mr. Fallon passed out earlier from WPCA that we received approval of. And that's about all I have to say about the site. I'd be happy to answer any questions, so. Sure.
Thank you. So yeah, you're correct. Ms. Pooley did respond that your revisions
Right.
Addressed her concerns.
Right.
She did indicate, however, that the report indicates as adequate stopping sight distance, but does not provide the intersection sight distance, which is a more conservative distance. I'm sure you saw the
I
email.
did. And I
Mr.
did,
Galante
yeah,
is gonna
Mr.
address
Galante will
that?
talk to you about that when he gets
Okay.
up here.
All right.
At this point, Mr. Obviously,
do you have any
Mr. Romano
questions?
will remain in attendance, but Mr. Philip Cerrone, our architect,
Yeah.
will review the architectural design.
Terrific. Does anyone else have any questions about engineering? No. Drainage?
Thank you.
GT2?
And then M3 on the next page.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Philip Cerrone. My office is here in Fairfield, Connecticut. Just to quickly walk you through the project here on the site plan, and so you can understand on the floor plan which units are which, but when you come in from the street, the first building on your left is 3 townhouse units, so there's 3 two-bedroom units in that building. The building all the way into the back is 2 townhouse units, so there's 2 two-bedroom units in that building. The building immediately on the right, the first 2 units are 2 townhouses, 2-bedroom units, and then it's a flat over a flat. As John said, all the units do have garages in them. So here's a floor plan of the different units. There's really just 2 types of units. So the townhouse units are a garage on the first floor with a little sitting area, some closet space, and then a stair that goes up. On the second floor, you have the bedroom, the living room, kitchen area, and then on the third floor is the 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. All of the units have their own laundries in them, and obviously they're all self-contained mechanical units in them. On the 2 flats, it's 2 separate garages, one for the first floor flat, one for the next floor flat, and then 1 story up is 1-bedroom flat, and then above that is the other bedroom flat. The easiest way really to look at the building on the outside of the renderings that I just handed out. So on the exterior, this is a view. The first sheet is a view actually as you're driving in. This is the townhouse building on the right with the flats after it. The garages are all going to be more of a carriage-style garage door. The exteriors of the building are a combination of clapboard siding with wood trim and wood windows. And then to break up the facades, some of the units, the ones in the middle here, are brick facades. All the roofs are asphalt, architectural style shingles. The site itself is obviously a paved site. This is just a view from looking at it from the other side, which is the second sheet in that package that I handed you. Again, you can see on the back, it's the same thing. We did cantilever the backs just to break up some of the elevation. So that's kind of just a really quick overview of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Canelli?
I have questions related to the code enforcement minutes. A couple of questions. I don't know if you or the engineer developed the site plan, as the layout is the more appropriate person to answer them. But first, related to comments made by Lieutenant Bullard from the fire department, they raised concerns about maintaining access into the driveway during snowstorms.
Right.
Can you talk about what we have here in terms of that? Because that can be a fatal defect in these kinds of applications if, in fact, there is a threat to safety.
Right, and actually, as we developed the site plan, we met with the fire marshal a couple of times, and we went through actually 3 or 4 different plans with him until we came up with a plan that everybody was happy with as far as getting fire trucks into it. And that's one of the reasons that we situated the units as they are, so that you have some vehicle access here, and you can get ambulances. In particular, ambulances is the thing they're mostly concerned about, getting them in and out of there quickly. So there is enough room for them to turn around here. Fire trucks will have access into the site, but they will most likely have to back out of the site if there was in the event of a fire.
What's
Go ahead, I'm sorry,
on the fire truck?
On the
Get
other-
to the next-
No, please do, go ahead.
Thank you.
Can I just make one comment before you go to the next question? Obviously, I referred to it in the material, but the fire marshal, who is statutorily authority for fire code compliance. You do have his email of April 6, 2015, but more importantly than that, we met with the fire marshal on numerous occasions, and I think it's uncontroverted. There is nothing with respect to this proposal, the site plan, that is not in compliance with the state of Connecticut Fire Safety Code.
You said the email was from April 6th?
I did.
Only because the code enforcement notes here are from September 15th.
I
so-
understand that.
Okay,
But the fire marshal is the fire marshal. And although, and I certainly, we can address and have and will again, Lieutenant Bullard's comments about snow, and I'm happy to do that. And we'll do it again and we'll reiterate it. But the important thing here for this application is that you have record information from the fire marshal indicating satisfaction. And it's absolutely clear that all aspects of this proposal comply with all provisions of the Connecticut State Fire Safety Code.
Well, are you referring to the email where he says, looks okay to us, but I want to see elevations?
No, I'm referring to, it's at page 28
Yeah.
of the material.
Bill, where Mr. Kessler says, I presume that's the drawing dated 3/2/15. Consensus is it's workable for us, would like to see elevations.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. Then you're interpreting that email as an approval of the plan?
I'm interpreting it to mean that there's no indication in this document or the code minutes that it's not in compliance with the state fire code. Correct.
Well, as
But
a
we're happy to
conclusion-
answer the question relative to the snow removal.
Yeah, I do have a second one about that, Mr. Chairman.
And excuse me, if I could just add to that too, we are also, although the code doesn't necessarily require us to sprinkle all the buildings are going to have a fire suppression sprinkler system, which is one of the reasons that the fire marshal felt that much more comfortable with it.
Right. And so, can a fire truck turn around in the, in the, the back area there near the
In this
building?
area here?
Yeah.
I don't think that a fire truck there's probably enough radius here for a fire truck to make a complete turn, but he can make a three-point turn and come back down.
Three-point turn. Not, I don't mean a circle,
No, he can
but
make
he
a
can pull
three-point
in
turn.
and make a K-turn.
Yes.
To get out, right? Okay. And so the other issue was sprinklers. Now, you said that, in fact, the redesign includes suppression sprinklers?
Correct. We're going to put a fire suppression sprinkler system in the entire complex. So
Okay.
every unit will have that in it.
Is there a difference between a sprinkler system and a fire suppression sprinkler?
No, the right term is fire suppression sprinkler, so.
Okay, very good. Excellent. Thanks. Yes.
I also had, in reference to the code enforcement minutes of the 15th of September under the subheading on page 4, police, I wonder if you could address the concerns listed. Item 2, I don't see any spots to put the snow beside the street, and the parking spaces look tight, and who's going to manage the property? That's been answered. But how will snow removal be dealt with? It is awfully tight, and that could be an issue related to the on-site safety of the proposed project.
There's not a lot of landscape area, but there's some landscape area back here. There's landscape areas on the side here along the building and along the front here. If we don't have enough room to pile the snow on the site, they'll remove the snow off the site. All of the asphalt will be clear when it snows.
Who will do the removal?
Well, they're going to, I assume,
The
the management
management will
company's going to have
remove it?
somebody do it.
All right.
It's not going to be up to the tenants. The management company will have a contract with somebody who'll remove the snow.
I think you'll hear before the proceedings are over, good things from current tenants of the Carl Kelly's. And clearly, that was why I took some time talking about this family and their enthusiasm for this development. It's going to be very well managed in a hands-on way.
But the point being that should they sell this property at some point in the future, those agreements and things would then be in the hands of the next owner, but obviously the structures as such remain.
Yeah, the owner's going to have to maintain the property, whether it be the Parlocalyx or anybody else, so that the tenants, can park, just like any landlord would.
Any other questions?
Is Mr. Galante going to talk about the proposed stop sign and the no parking signs?
Yes.
Are we ready for Mr. Galante?
I don't know. No, Commissioner,
Galante.
no, hold on a second.
No, we're not.
Commissioner Corcoran.
Hi, I have on the diagram you have up there, What is the position of the neighboring houses?
Do we, John, we don't have a survey. Do you? Mr. Galante has a picture.
So when I'm looking at this picture here, and it shows a hedgerow here and flowers and
Right,
so
well, that picture is really from the back of the site looking this way.
Are these plantings on your property?
They would be right along the edge of the building, yes.
Because when I look at the map here, it doesn't look like there's room for it or there is any there. I mean, I don't see any landscaping here that's shown as in the picture.
Right, so candidly, we took a little artistic license here because this is somebody else's property, so but I do think there's some plantings along there.
You mean on the other property?
Yeah, this picture is actually from back here. So these plantings would be back.
Well, no, it's right here.
Right, so they would be over here.
No, not these plantings, I'm talking about these.
Oh, along here?
Yeah,
Right.
that's not on the property. Okay. And secondly, this BMW Roadster here, it has is this the way the parking spot is designed, so that you have to parallel park into it?
That one spot is, right.
Because on this drawing, it isn't that way.
It's,
Because if the dumpster's there, I don't know how you would parallel park into that.
that's this spot, right here.
Okay, so it's shown differently on the two, right? This one has, no, this has a curve behind it, and this one doesn't.
Yeah.
You see here, there's this little green spot here, which isn't here on this one. But which one is it? This one? Okay.
The curb in the rendering behind the car is not
That's
actually
correct.
part of the...
The curb in the rendering behind the car.
Right.
So
Right.
just the last...
The renderings are, the purpose of the rendering is to give you a feel of the whole complex. I mean, some of the landscaping and the curbing, as we develop them off of these, depending on the exact angle, some of it gets a little skewed.
Well, actually, my point is that that won't be the feel of it, because there's a house right there, right? And
Well,
those plantings and those
Where's that?
flowers aren't going to be there.
Actually, that view is from back here. The house is over here. This is mostly landscaped back here.
Okay.
Actually, if we took the true shot of that, most of it would be blocked from these trees. Because there's all trees back here, and the shot is really in those trees.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Cerrone? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cerrone.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Mike Galante, Principal of Frederick Clark Associates, also located in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'd like to do a couple things tonight. One is discuss the site access. Two is certainly discuss the traffic report and the findings and the recommendation for mitigation from this report. And I'll end up with the sightline analysis and why we use the stopping site distance versus the intersection site distance. So I won't be forgetting that, just leaving that to the end, if you don't mind. Just for the beginning, just for reference, the site itself today has two driveways serving each side of the existing home, which is 2 units. So we're removing 2 driveways, one located here and one located about here. The proposal is to construct one central driveway opposite the Park Square intersection and make it essentially a 4-way intersection. In conjunction with that maximizes sightlines. It eliminates 2 driveways, and it puts the traffic into one intersection where we can control it. One is the existing conditions and the driveway. Yes, sir.
Great. So that's really the first question, is about the stop signs and the no parking on the street.
Yeah, I'll touch on that right now, too, just to kind of finish that. Our recommendation is there's a yield sign here today. But if you look at the traffic volumes, Bloomfield is certainly the busier road with the volume itself, 50 to 65 vehicles 2-way during each peak hour. Park Square has 7 to 10 vehicles during a peak hour, so it's certainly the side street. So our recommendation is to certainly put a stop sign on the driveway, which is now at the intersection, and put a stop sign on Park Square Court, which is the side street, and that should be the stop control intersection. And Bloomfield becomes I don't want to call it the major street, but the higher volume roadway through this intersection. So
Well,
that's the reason for changing it.
It would be uninterrupted. There would be no...
Bloomfield will be uninterrupted.
Right.
It is today, except for a yield sign, which means no one's really stopping anyhow.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to have a yield sign there.
Is your recommendation to remove the yield sign?
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, and it says that in the report, you remove the yield sign, and then you replace the control of the intersection with a stop sign on the driveway, side driveway, and a stop sign on the Park Square Court approach. You would certainly remove the yield sign. It shouldn't be at the intersection. And then this would be the free-flow roadway, if you will, at the intersection itself. In conjunction with that, we're suggesting removing parking. Now, at any intersection, you would not have parking within 25 feet of an intersection, so automatically, this is an intersection today, so theoretically, there's no parking at the intersection. So when we suggest removing parking, we're talking about 2 spaces beyond the 25 feet setback, 25-foot setback.
But there are no signs on the street today that say no parking.
That's correct, and typically there are mostly in residential neighborhoods, there are no signs saying no parking here at a corner, which is a state standard, you don't park within 25 feet of an intersection.
Exactly, but those signs don't exist. So your recommendation is to remove the yield sign, put a stop sign on Park Square, put a stop sign on the driveway, posted no parking signs on that side of Bloomfield Drive.
Yes.
All right, and all of that would, of course, be subject to approval by
Police
the
Commissioner.
police commissioner as a condition of approval.
Yes, and we have not been there yet because we want to go through this process, have your input, so we do it all in one meeting, if you will.
Okay, very good.
And typically what I do, just so you know, I go see the police chief and his staff, and then depending on how they review it, we go to the police commission.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Barretts.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I think it might be the right time to ask, because you just said you'd advocated a posted no parking. Could you just show where the no parking would be? I'm sorry. Can you show
Yeah.
where the no parking would
With
be?
the introduction of a new driveway at the intersection, and typically there's no parking 25 feet to an intersection, we're suggesting no parking the next 25 feet, if you will, along the site's frontage. So essentially 1 space here, and then 1 space in here. The reason is to open up the intersection for sight lines, to enforce the no parking at an intersection, and maximize sight lines at the driveway, and the intersection in general.
And it's a little bit of a curve.
And this on the curve, which is more of a reason to put the no parking signs.
Okay. But I don't want to jump around, and perhaps you're going to cover this, but I'll just tell you what one of my concerns are, and maybe you can cover it, because I'm familiar with these applications. We've had several of them. Some have been approved, some have been denied, some denials have been overturned, some denials have been upheld. Typical concern of ours is where, and we understand what the law is, was when traffic or, automobiles from the site spill over onto the street and potentially cause some issues. So, as I understand the parking correctly, there are 9 spaces that are in garages.
Internal, yes.
Internal, and there are 5 spaces that are around the lot.
Outside, but on the
Yielding
site.
a 1.5 ratio, as Mr. Fallon said, which exceeds what we see in some developments. I just hope. It exceeds the standards. But could you just talk about, do you see the garage parking, the fact that it's in a garage and it's not a space in the lot where like anybody can just drive up? I mean, if I'm visiting somebody there, I can't just open their garage door and park, you see what I mean?
Unless
So
they invite
there's
you in.
there's some less flexibility with garage parking than parking lot parking. Do you see that garage impacting the adequacy of the parking? And then should parking, for any reason, a party, extra visitors, whatever, spill over to the street, how do you just see that working?
Where do they park?
Where would that happen?
Well,
We've got no
okay,
parking.
let's back up 1 or 2 steps.
Sure.
The 1.5 spaces per unit
Mm-hmm.
is in excess of what ITE, which is what John meant to refer to earlier in the night. It's the Institute of Transportation Engineers, the Parking Generation Handbook. It's a red document, 4th edition, no date. They don't put dates on those books. That's what we're referring to as the 1.2. 1.5 is certainly higher than that.
Yeah.
We've gone out and done some studies on our own over the years, and we find that 1.5 is certainly more than adequate. And when we do these studies, we do it late night, 11 o'clock at night, not 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And typically on a weekend, we go out and do these visits, if you will. Spill over onto the street. There is public parking on the street, so any resident or visitor would certainly have a right. If someone comes to my house, they may park on the road instead of my driveway. It may happen if someone's having a gathering, a holiday, or for anything like that. So yeah, someone could park on the street, but as far as internal, I lived at a condominium. I had reserved parking. We made sure our cars were in the reserved parking spaces, So the guest parking spaces were available for guests, and everyone at this condominium development did that. That's typically how it works at a development like this, whether it's rental or a condominium development. You make sure you're using your space, if you will. In this case, it's a garage space. It could be reserved space at an open parking lot, and then the visitor spaces. In this case, the 5 spaces are kind of functioning as visitor spaces or resident overflow.
Mr. Chairman, may I-
Yes,
No.
Commissioner Canale.
I'm not sure you can answer this, Mr. Galante. I may have to ask staff, but again, I'm referring to the code enforcement notes from September 15th. Under the police comments, they mention in item 4, quote, "There are numerous cars parking on the street." Now, I'm not sure what street they're referring to, but let's assume from them that maybe they're talking about Bloomfield?
Bloomfield.
I'm guessing that's what they're talking about.
Well,
So here's my concern. We're talking about, in your recommendations, doing more no parking on Bloomfield, right? The idea is that we want to protect that curb.
total of 2 spaces.
Right, 2 spaces
Yeah.
in total for no parking.
Correct.
Right.
Well, there would be four total, but
Four total.
but there are presently, under the rule,
Right.
the first 25 feet from the intersection of
And there's
both
already-
sides
right,
would
it's- yeah,
already
it's
be no
already-
parking.
right.
So,
Well, keep in mind, if I may, before you finish,
Right, sure.
as I mentioned, there's a driveway here, so there's no parking.
Yeah.
We're suggesting a no parking sign to cover that exact space, if you will, that's a driveway today. There's a driveway here today, if you can see that. That's the other space I'm talking about. So today, that you're not parking in those spaces, so I'm saying we're removing 2 spaces. We're just moving around where
oh,
the
is in
parking
terms
is.
of the net, yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a net
Net.
of 0 that we're removing, to be honest.
Well, yeah.
Well, not take the, well,
But
you
people
could have
don't-
someone parking here, which is probably illegal, in the intersection, that's the space or 2 that someone can park today, because there's no signing to restrict it.
Right.
Right.
But state law says you shouldn't park at or in an intersection.
Right.
And that's what Mr. Whitman may have been referring to, we don't know. I mean, as far as parking, he may have been talking about.
Yeah, I might want a clarification, because, I mean, it does seem that ultimately you're going to have to rely somewhat on Bloomfield for, if there is a need for folks to park, and they've got to be, they'd have to understand for safety's sake where they can and can't go.
Yeah.
But, all right.
And if you've been on Bloomfield at different, tonight, for example, you wouldn't find cars bumper to bumper parked on the street.
No,
for
because
the
it's
entire
mostly
neighborhood.
because it's mostly, a lot of residential, single-family.
Well, they have short driveways,
Short way.
and they, they're 2-family
Yeah.
homes in many cases, but it's not wall-to-wall cars
No.
parked on the street. It's not. So there are spaces today. So when I say we're moving 2 spaces, in a way, we're not really changing the parking on street. I think we're making it better, hopefully, by restricting it actually in the intersection itself. Okay?
Thank you. Any
Right.
other questions on this topic before we let Mr. Galante actually give his presentation?
I'm
All
used
right.
to this.
Go ahead.
My hands are behind my back. I'm trying not to talk with my hands tonight.
Please continue. Thank you.
I'm just going to run through some of the boards. All of these figures I'm showing you are in the report itself. There's nothing that you have not seen. We did a traffic study. It's a simple and one intersection traffic study, but we conducted traffic counts last February, March, so they're about a year old, which is perfectly fine for this type of neighborhood and certainly traffic conditions in many areas. We conducted the counts at Bloomfield Drive. Here's the site here, and Park Square Court, which is a T intersection. We identified the morning peak to occur between 7 and 8 a.m., somewhat typical commuter peak. The afternoon peak occurred between 3 and 4 p.m., somewhat of outside the typical peak. So it might be the residents in the area working where they work, 7 to 4 or 7 to 3, and they're coming home earlier. And it may be related to school traffic, which I doubt, because the high school is off to the top of the sheet, actually. Volume-wise, Bloomfield carries anywhere from 50 to 65 vehicles. The 65 is during the morning peak hour. As I mentioned before, Park Square Court carries about 10 vehicles, 7 to 10 vehicles during the peak hours. So the volumes are quite low in the area. We identified the volumes for the different peaks. This becomes what we call our baseline traffic condition for the purposes of the study. We expand our traffic by 2 steps, a 1% growth rate to account for general growth in the area. And I can tell you, we track traffic for a lot of years, and it's in many cases 0.5 per year or 0. In the last several years, it's been minus growth, as much as 20% in different neighborhoods and different towns, which we've actually done studies. CONDOT agrees with our projections, or lack of projections, if you will. We also added traffic for other developments. The Fairfield development that's nearby, the Pine Tree, I was going to say Pine Tree Senior Housing Development, which is nearby. We accounted for those developments on the streets that affect this traffic study. We actually did those 2 traffic studies, so we certainly have the information. This type of development, again, I really don't need a chart, but I'll show you Table 3 from the report. 9 units. We're not taking credit for the 2 units that we're removing, so we're saying it's 9 new trips, so 9 new units will generate anywhere from 4 to 5 trips during a peak hour. 4 trips in the morning peak, 5 trips in the afternoon. That's a combined in and out total. So in essence, we're adding 4 cars or 5 cars to the intersection in front of the site itself. Again, we removed the traffic for the 2 existing units. We distribute that traffic to the road system. I'll go quickly to a chart that you won't be able to see because of distance, but it's table, I can't see the info. but it's table 4 in the report, and it's the standard level of service table that I use that summarizes impacts, levels of service, delay. There's another chart that goes with this that gives you the queuing of vehicles at the intersection. We analyze it under today's conditions and tomorrow's conditions, where we eliminate a yield sign and put stop signs in on the driveway and certainly the side street. In essence, what this table says, it operates a level of service, a very little delay, low volume intersection. Adding 4 or 5 vehicles during a peak hour is not going to change how it operates. The operational characteristics will change slightly because of the stop sign versus a yield sign. On Bloomfield, where there's no stop sign, we're putting, on Side Street, where there's no stop sign, when you put a stop sign in, you create a short-term delay, which makes sense. Our recommendations, as I mentioned, I'll just touch on briefly, is the removal of the yield sign in front of the site on Bloomfield, if you will, placement of a stop sign on the driveway, exiting, of course, stop bar, center line, and so on, and then a stop sign on the side street, Park Court, directly opposite the side driveway itself. I'll end up with, we did accidents. I have a chart, but the accident analysis from the town police department for a 3-year period, 2012 through 2014, for the entire area shows no accidents along the site frontage or at this intersection. So there really aren't any issues there today, but we do think we're making it safer with the modification to traffic control. Last but not least is sightlines. And yes, I do have a chart. It's table 6 from the traffic report. And I'm not sure if Laura Pooley saw this table. It is in the report. I know there's a discussion email from today.
Yeah.
And I'll touch on that.
Thank you.
Quite a while ago, Laura and I had a discussion on how we should measure sightlines for developments that I do in town and everyone else would do in town as far as an application. And it was agreed that we would do stopping sight distance, which is what we did here, for small residential developments, single driveway, small residential developments such as this, when you have a low volume of traffic, in this case coming out of a driveway. So we are using stopping sight distance. For larger developments, commercial development, mixed-use development, we always use intersection sight distance. They're measured differently, they're analyzed differently, height off the ground, and so on. This is clearly intersection sight distance. For Campfield Drive, we used stopping sight distance. For the senior housing, we use stopping sight distance, just to be more consistent.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
But your proposal is to create an intersection.
It's an existing intersection.
Well,
I'm adding a lake to it, yes.
Well, we're instead of the existing driveways being adjacent to, yeah, put that other one up there, adjacent to the, did we lose it?
Here it is.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm
this
talking
one.
about the other one where the, there's the,
Bloomfield and
yeah, with
But the
the
site drive-
shade trees on it. Yeah, that one there.
I never show shade trees.
It's helpful
This one.
though, to visualize, right.
Yeah.
So whereas.
Driveway here, that's what
Right,
you're referring to.
exactly, right. So in that circumstance, those driveways are not entering and exiting at an intersection. And the proposal is to create access into the intersection with the driveway. That was the whole discussion we just had, where we're going to put a stop sign at Park Square, we're going to put a stop sign at the development, so that the cars are now going to be entering the intersection from those areas.
That's part of
So-
the reason for the stop sign control that I'm suggesting.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So, can you just then explain to me why you believe the stopping
Site distance.
is treating it like a driveway, is more appropriate here rather than an intersection analysis, considering that's what it appears to me to be and what we're creating by the traffic controls?
Okay, I understand the question and your reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
but it is still a driveway, low-volume driveway. Yes, it is at an intersection. In a way, we're cleaning up the frontage of the site. While we're trying to make it better, we're creating a concern that you have, that we're moving the driveways from outside the intersection window, if you will, into the intersection.
But if I
But-
could just follow up quickly, though, I do think this is an important point. If I owned if I had a car in the previous configuration, in the current configuration of the two driveways, so if I was living at one of those two spots where I was coming out of a driveway, I would be coming out of a driveway. That would be it. There'd be no other pressures, there'd be no other concerns. Here, I am entering definitely what is now a newly formed true intersection, because I have neighbors who all have to come out of those various units, those 9 units. There's 8 other potential folks who likely are on their way to work in the morning, in those peak hours in the morning, on their way home.
They
So
might
the
actually
dynamics,
be
the dynamics,
queuing.
yeah, the dynamics of this, as the chairman points out, are one much more of an intersection, not a driveway. So it would seem that your calculations, based on what the NTSE, what's the organization? ITS, I'm sorry, that they would be based on different assumptions. What would be necessary for sightline for one individual to come out of one driveway would be very different than being part of where they're coming out of an established intersection for a development.
My reason for
In other,
using-
I'm not, yeah, I'm sure, I'm just trying to understand why you would use that standard. Okay.
My reason for using stopping site distance is because it's a single driveway, 1 lane in, 1 lane out, 2 or 3 vehicles at most during a 1-hour period. That's not much different than a single-family home, but I understand your question about is at an intersection.
I don't want to be argumentative, and I'll take direction from the chair as to when we'll speak, but I live on the corner of Edgewood Place and Edgewood Road, right on the corner. Now, when I pull my own car out of my driveway, the conditions are very different than when I go just a few, 10 yards, 15 yards to the entry point of the intersection of Edgewood Road and Edgewood Place. The conditions, the traffic conditions are very, very different. Yet,
In what way?
because now I'm dealing with cars that are stopping at 3 different stop signs, here you're going to have 2, versus my single driveway where I'm in a single driveway. The requirements of what I have to do as a driver are different. So all I'm saying is that you can say that things are similar. Yeah, there's some similarity, but you have created, the development of this project leads to the creation of an intersection, and it seems to be intellectually honest and to present us which is a fair assessment of what the potential impact on traffic is that your number should be based on the intersection, on intersection sightlines, not on driveway sightlines. A driveway and an intersection.
I live in a neighborhood.
No, this is an intersection.
I live in a neighborhood of single-family homes. There are 2 houses that have driveways onto a town street that are within 25 feet of an intersection.
Right, my house.
No, we live in the same neighborhood. But my point is, they were probably maybe based on nothing, but they were based on stopping site distance today. They don't meet intersection site distance at all, but they're pretty much adjacent to an intersection.
Right, but...
So I understand,
Yeah.
I certainly understand your question and your concern, I really do.
And a driveway is a certain width. I mean, a minimum width for a driveway is probably, 10 feet? Yeah.
At least, sure.
The width of this, is...
2 12-foot lanes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's 1 lane in each direction.
Correct.
Right. Is there any estimation of queuing at that, exit?
Sure, 1 car.
1 car?
Yeah.
Because your estimate is 2 to 3 cars per hour?
Over 60 minutes, so it's,
Right.
you're not going to have more than 1 car
Okay.
at any one time, so yeah.
Okay, so about a 24-foot wide, 2-lane
Private driveway, yes.
entrance to the property. And, semantics aside.
Yeah, but we're trying to balance, obviously, the best and safe approach to this. In my opinion, this meets the standards for a driveway configuration at a low-volume intersection. It's one of the reasons why I started out with a traffic study, to give you the volumes that are occurring at this intersection during the peak hours.
Right. Okay. I think we've got it. I mean, the facts are what they are.
Can I just ask Mr. Galante a few questions just on this topic before we move on?
Sure. Before you do that, Commissioner Corcoran, did you have a question on this?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then if he might raise something you might want to ask him about.
So right now, the through traffic, I mean, there's no control on the, from Park Square Court onto Bloomfield Drive, but the yield sign is actually on Bloomfield now, right?
Yield sign is actually here. Let's call it westbound on
Right,
Bloomfield.
so we're moving the control, the yield sign from that street
We're
to the other
eliminating the
street.
yield sign.
Right.
And then putting a stop sign on
the other
what's called
street.
the northbound approach.
But is that where most of the traffic is? Is that why the yield sign is on where it is rather than on that intersection?
I'm not sure why the yield sign is there, but Bloomfield has the higher volume, about 65 vehicles two-way during a 1-hour period. The side street has 7 to 10 vehicles two-way during the same time period. That's certainly functioning as, and it is the side street or the low-volume street. So that's why I'm putting the stop sign on the low-volume side street.
Okay, that's what I was
Okay?
wondering.
Right.
That's the reason for the changing of the traffic control.
Okay. Very good. I mean, I have a couple follow-ups, but I mean, it depends, how do you, all right.
I thought it was just a clarification
Commissioner
question.
Barnes? Yeah.
We've asked, and we've gone through this, and I know you just answered this, but just make sure you understand the answer to Laura Pooley's question, which I...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Stopping sight distance, my understanding of stopping sight distance is a point from an intersection or driveway or whatever, for vehicles to be able to stop in time to go there. So cars going along Bloomfield, their sight approaching that. Intersection sight distance would be, I'm at an intersection, however you determine it, and I'm looking both ways.
both
Look to the
directions.
right, look to the left, and that's intersection sight
Correct.
distance. So, again, all these things aside, why, I just didn't get this, there were so many back and forth, I didn't get this. Why did you use stopping sight distance? I wasn't sure. Why did you determine it's a more appropriate method?
We use, and Laura and I have discussed this in the past for projects in general, because there was a question a while ago about what should we be doing.
Yeah.
I think she actually asked the question.
This is on her today's email.
Yeah,
That's
but I'm
why.
talking
So
about
she
in
said
general,
that the applicant should explain why the stopping sight distance is the more appropriate measure to use.
Yeah.
And that's from today, so I'm just saying.
Yeah, but I'm going back in time because we've had this discussion about
Okay.
every application,
Okay.
and Laura was asking me, well, what is the best way to do it? I guess because I'm a traffic engineer, she was asking the question, and we do this all the time. But we agreed on a residential driveway, low-volume residential driveway, we would use stopping sight distance.
Okay.
Which is a different calculation. And as you said, it's someone driving, in this case on Bloomfield, seeing the car coming out of a driveway, having sufficient time to react and stop. Intersection sight distance is used for certainly a busier intersection, commercial driveway, mixed-use development, and you know which ones we've done in town. We used intersection sight distance for all of those. Stopping sight distance has been used for the residential developments we've been doing in the area, and there's 2 in this area for the last year or 2. We use stopping sight distance in each one. Certain single-family homes, we certainly use stopping sight distance.
Okay.
And I'm thinking of Chatham Road, for example.
Yep.
Those driveways, that was stopping sight distance.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay. I
But
just
that's
wanted to-
where it comes from.
Then, let's just go through the numbers, okay? So, put the chart up.
Oh, yeah,
if
we
you
never did
wouldn't
that.
mind. Yeah, no, we didn't, we never actually got there. So,
Table 6.
yeah, you got it. Okay, so, stopping sight distance.
SSD.
Requirement would be, how much? What's the minimum?
It's 187 feet for stopping sight distance.
Okay, and that's
And that's
based on
based on the posted speed limit, and this incorrectly says 28 miles per hour, but it's based on the posted speed limit, which is 25.
Yeah.
For all local roads in town, essentially 25.
Right.
Other
Now-
roads are 30, but we have 270 feet looking, if you're coming out of the driveway,
Yep.
for the moment, there's more than 270 feet in that direction coming down Bloomfield.
Okay.
Looking
Yeah.
to you, looking to your left, coming out of the driveway, we have 192 feet. That doesn't take us to the intersection, but it's almost to the intersection.
Okay.
We have-
Now, in prior stopping site distance calculations, we have used the actual speed, where there's a measurement, and we've said, what's the average speed in the 85 percentile and so forth. I'm just remembering from prior testimonies, have we not?
For intersection site distance, we use the 85th percentile speed
Of the
of the motorist. Stopping site distance is based on the posted speed limit.
Post,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the difference.
All right, so based
Yeah.
on
A little
that...
confusing, but that's the difference.
Okay, based on that, you meet the criteria, the plan meets the
We
criteria...
meet the criteria for stopping
site.
site distance in both directions, correct.
Which is 25 miles an hour? Posted
Based
speed
on
limit,
25.
Based on posted
Based
speed
on
limit,
25 miles per hour,
Okay.
yes.
So then, just going to the intersection site distance analysis, all right? What would be the minimum requirements? Did you do that math?
No, we did not.
Got it.
I'd have to look up the chart, but it would be, I don't want to guess at the number, I can look it up while Mr. Fallon's probably speaking. But it's much greater than 187 feet. It's
is.
in the 300-foot range, for example.
Gotcha. So using that analysis, you wouldn't, the plan as proposed would not comply?
Most likely not.
Okay.
In one direction, it may, the 270-foot direction, because it's straight, looking up in
Yeah.
that direction.
Because I see the plus sign.
That's right.
Yeah.
But for the other direction, no, we would be to the intersection, which is probably about 110 feet away.
Okay.
So you would always, just for that reference, you would measure your intersection site distance to the intersection, and then at that point you stop.
Got it. Okay.
Okay?
Very good. Ms. Fallon?
A couple of questions, Mr. Glenn. First of all, with regard to the intersection itself, the existing intersection, there is an existing intersection there now, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And is it your professional opinion whether, or we'll throw that, you obviously have made recommendations for re-signage relative to this intersection, the existing intersection, correct?
Changes to traffic control, yes.
In your professional opinion, do those changes that you are recommending improve the condition and the safety of the existing intersection?
Yeah, yes, and I think I actually said that by changing the traffic control, I think we're actually improving the intersection. But fortunately, there were no accidents reported at the intersection, or near the intersection.
And based upon your analysis of the volumes that you've testified to involving 3 to 4 vehicle trips during peak hour, did you make a professional determination that you felt the appropriate measurement here was the stopping site distance analysis that you've testified to?
Yeah, that's my opinion, that the stopping site distance is and was appropriate for this intersection.
And did you testify, I just want to make sure you heard you correctly, that that was in fact the analysis that was undertaken with regard to the Campfield Road, what I refer to as the land code development around the corner?
Yes, stopping site distance, yes.
And that was applied?
Yes.
And did you also testify that that was the standard that was applied for the senior housing, I believe it's...
Pine Tree.
Pine Tree.
Yes.
And there too you used the...
Stopping site distance.
Stopping site distance. And lastly, and most importantly, in your professional opinion as a traffic engineer, do you believe that based upon your analysis of the stopping site distances, that the condition here upon full development will be safe as far as the sight line and what we've testified to?
Yes, I do believe it would be safe, because it meets all the criteria, and we provide recommendations to better control the intersection.
Right, and do you...
So yes.
And so is it your conclusion that there will not be any adverse impact on public safety if your implementation of your recommendations are made with regard to utilization of this property as we are requesting?
Yeah, my response would be no adverse impact. Correct.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Ford.
Just to follow up on that, if you would change the analysis to the
Intersection site distance.
would you consider it unsafe?
Well, it wouldn't meet the standard. It doesn't make it automatically unsafe, because it happens to meet stopping site distance criteria.
So it wouldn't change
Which
your
is the
opinion, would it
second-
change your opinion, I guess, Mike?
And it would not, in this case, would not change my opinion.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fallon, I have a question for you. Yes, sir. And I know it's your turn to come up to the mic, so you might as well come back up. I haven't noticed any sidewalks or curb cuts on your renderings.
On the site plans.
Site plan renderings
Yeah.
along Bloomfield Drive.
You're correct, we don't have one shown on the site plan, but we'd be happy to make that a condition
We'd
of
like to
approval.
see that also, I guess, prior.
We'd be happy to make it a condition of
Okay.
approval, of course,
All right.
to put the sidewalks in.
Very, very good. Curbs and sidewalks, right? All right, and the trees... No?
No, I'm...
Curbs and sidewalks.
It's curbs and sidewalks, curb cuts, handicap curb cuts, I guess, by the entranceway, sidewalks all on Bloomfield, that's not showing on
Right.
the site plan.
Well, I was going to, yeah. Go ahead.
Wait a minute.
I'll ask him about it.
Mr. Romano may have a comment.
Oh, good. I mean, it's okay. It's
We'll make it,
fine.
of
Yeah,
course, we'd
that's
make it a
fine.
condition of approval.
And it
The
may be
handicap
in one
curb
of...
cuts, the curbs, and the sidewalks.
Yeah, and it may be in one of them. I'm just looking at the, for example, the layout of the parking lot.
Yeah, good
Okay.
point. I think we'll probably find Mr. Romano was looking for it, but condition of approval, fully
Very good.
anticipated.
Another one of the comments in the paper reviews was a pedestrian circulation in the site.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't see any, in going through the site plans and the renderings and things, any like pedestrian walkways or striping that would indicate pedestrian flow.
I'll let Mr. Gallanti address that.
Thank you.
I think I've been elected to answer the question. Quite frankly, in a site this small, and I don't mean to minimize this development of this site itself, we're certainly putting sidewalks along the street, which was a very good comment. But putting sidewalks, certainly no crosswalk, but putting sidewalks or walkways internally would be very difficult to do.
Not sidewalks so much, I think. So the sidewalks we're referring to are like where those large shade trees are along Bloomfield Drive.
Well,
Yep.
the sidewalks would be here.
Correct. And
Yep.
so I think that, well, I interpreted the comments in the review to mean internal pedestrian flow in the parking lot, walking from building to building or walking to the dumpster, the trash dumpster, some sort of striping or
Comments coming from where?
code enforcement.
It was actually, I think,
If you put a walkway of any type, it'd be behind the garage aprons, it'd be very difficult to do that.
I mean, it's our feeling, based upon the discrete nature of this particular development and the 9 units, that it doesn't warrant the kind of pedestrian, whatever you might have in a larger development, be it commercial or residential. Having said that, it's something you could address.
Right. It's in TPZ code enforcement. Mr. Wendt, item number 4, suggested that there should be included a description of pedestrian circulation of some sort. He doesn't say of some sort, those are my words, but...
I'm reading it, I guess, our include description of pedestrian circulation as well. I mean, I guess, our feeling on that is the development speaks for itself. We think it doesn't warrant the kind of pedestrian egress and ingress things that you might normally have. But if the commission feels differently and wants to prescribe as a condition of approval, since Mr. Wendt made the comment, a submission to staff with some sort of a plan that we could collaborate with him on in terms of striping, I just don't think to be, but whatever. I mean, we're open-minded to that if the commission feels it's warranted in consideration of the application.
Very good.
Which is, Mr. Galante has one suggestion.
Yeah, I would suggest, if I may, to answer that question, in conjunction with the sidewalks along the street itself, to put a sidewalk along the driveway to bring.
Yes, for ingress, perfect, I like
And
that.
I think that, quite frankly, internal walkways in this size development, I can assure you no one's going to use them. But I think the driveway coming out to the street would be used.
Well, look, somebody in the building on the top side of that, right?
Over here?
No, on the top, yes, right there. They gotta walk across the lot to dump the trash in the dumpster down below, and,
Yeah.
there's gonna be some other amenities, around here, I mean, so, I think.
Well,
that's
residents will
what-
certainly walk through the area, but it's going to be difficult to direct them to a walkway or a sidewalk. But I think this one has the best result.
Sure. Fair enough. Anyone else have any questions on that? Okay?
Thank you.
I think there may be some members of the public who want to be heard, so I can just reserve any final submission.
Sure. If you're ready to conclude your application, I'll call for, we can go to public
I'll just
comment.
reserve an opportunity for a brief rebuttal or summary, but want to give the
Certainly.
public a chance to speak.
Sure. We'll go to public comment on this. Any member of the public that wishes to be heard?
Yeah, my name is Vincent Barrett. I live at 1 Bloomfield Drive. I've been there since 1986. There's several problems with this project. First of all, it's too large, and to address the parking, okay? It's a bad bend to begin with, and do the math on this one. You have 9 units. Everybody's going to have 2 cars, that's 18. The existing house that's there now, one tenant has 3 cars there. So you have 14. Now you have the garages. What if everybody used with a 1-car garage? They use it as storage. We are not going to tolerate anybody parking in front of our houses. I don't care if it's public or not. I'm letting you know that right now. We're not tolerating it. Number 2, I did my own traffic study since 1986. That's a very bad bend over there. Cars are going, not 25, they're doing 35 plus. And they're swerving in there. The cars are almost hitting. I watch it all the time. You got to scale this project back. He does nice work. I saw the house he did around on Campfield. It's good work. He's a nice guy. Nothing against him. This project's too big. And what's going on in the Campfield, we're not going to tolerate, even if the state comes in and overrules. I'm going to call the state prior to anybody ruling on this, and I'm going to have my say with them too. They can't just come in and crap on people in these neighborhoods and throw all these projects in like this. I called several real estate agents, and it can adversely affect the surrounding houses right there. So you're killing the value of the people who live there, which isn't right, so you got to consider that. I wouldn't mind, and I talked to several neighbors, if he took the existing house and upgraded it like he did around the bend. It looks really nice. It was a good job. And maybe even put 1 more unit in, but no more than that. Because we are not tolerating the parking in front of our houses, because there's 19 right there, plus everybody has at least 2 or more. There's going to be, people visiting. There's going to be cars all over there. It's a bad bend we're not tolerating. Okay?
Very good. Thank you for your comments.
Okay, now I'm going to get the number for the state housing department. I'm going to call them.
Okay. Does anyone else wish to be heard on this item?
My name's Bob Duncan. I live at 11 Bloomfield Drive, right across the street, okay? Let me start off with this. This is an R3 zone. Am I correct in assuming that? I think that's
Yes.
what it is. Well, isn't there a percentage that 15 to 20% that you're not supposed to exceed for lot coverage in an R3 zone?
That's correct. If it was a single-family home,
Okay.
the issue here is the
I don't-
state statute.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're exceeding that.
It's not.
There's no lawn whatsoever. It's building and asphalt. Okay, these the setbacks are supposed to be 15 feet, 15 feet on the side. You got 5. You have 5 in the rear. The parking, again, there's going to be cars all over there. That curve and I'll attest to this, I've lived there for 40 years. My wife has lived there for 60 years. Okay? It's a racetrack. It's not 25 miles an hour when you take your tests. Okay? When the kids get out of school, they're going from the school and they're cutting across to get over to Fairfield Woods, or it's a cut through to get to Black Rock Turnpike. Minimum, every year, we have 3 accidents in my front yard. Yeah, it's not registered down with the police station because we don't call the cops. We help the people. Okay? Call a tow truck for them. We had a car in my dogwood tree at the end of my driveway. We had a motorcycle in the bushes. Everybody was okay, and I had my mailbox taken out. That was just last year. Every year it's something. My brother-in-law, who lives next door, parks in the front of the house. I can't tell you how many times his car's been whacked throughout the years, and he's lived there just as long as I have. So, you know, it's going to increase traffic because these cars got nowhere to go. They're going to park in the street. I'm telling you, they're going to park in the street. We can't tolerate that because they're going to wind up in my front yard, if not into my house. It's going to knock our property values down. Where are you going to put the snow? Where are you going to put the snow? There's nowhere to put the snow. You're going to drag it out into the street. Or you're going to try to throw it in the park. They don't do that. They push it all up onto my property. They push it up onto the property across the street. Now the street is 3 times smaller. Okay, I've lived there. I've lived this. I know what I'm talking about, and I vehemently oppose this. And I hope you turn this down. It's too much. You're putting too much on a postage stamp. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to be heard?
Hi, I'm Diane Dutko. I live at number 13 Bloomfield in a duplex next to my brother-in-law, so I am directly across the street. There are so many cars parked on the other side of Bloomfield. Every day I have a hard time getting out of my own driveway. Now, with all these houses going up, it's way too big, too many cars, too many people. I'll never get out. And I just hope that you do not approve this. If he wants to do something smaller, we'd probably be okay with that, but we don't want 9 units. And this is what I'm going to have to look at, because they're high, and I've been there for, 44 years. It is a cut-through. The buses cut through. They speed. We've lost 4 cars out front, totaled. And when my husband parks out front, always hit and run. They just come speeding around. They don't even bother looking at that yield sign. They're supposed to yield to the people coming from Knapp's Park, or Park Square. Nobody ever yields. They come around, they don't even look. So I just hope that you don't approve this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yep.
This is all very intimidating. My name is Susan Duncan. I live at 11 Bloomfield Drive. It would be directly across the street from this. I would just like everybody to drive by our house, see what our neighborhood is like. We have 2-family homes. They're all 2 stories. They have yards. Most of them are pretty well kept, to the best of our ability, because we are all in a low-income area, but we own. Just drive by and give it your own opinion. Regardless of what a wonderful family they are, and all their plans have met approval, put yourself next to it. That's all I'm asking you to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Yep.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Kevin Muller. I own 18 Bloomfield Drive, and I also own Beacon Square, which is not that far away from Bloomfield. I signed the petition to agree with this development, but my concern is definitely the parking situation. Like the other gentleman said, 18 cars plus company. That road is a heavily used road, especially after school is out and certain times of the day. But my concern is, even though Campfield Drive was approved by the courts because they challenged the towns, first the town denied them, then he challenged them in court and approved it through the Low Income Housing Act. My concern is, and I wish I knew this was going to be done, because I wouldn't have sold off a piece of property that was 14,000 square feet in that area. I might have torn that house down and built, since it was 14,000 square feet, like Capizillo's was 20,000 square feet. He was approved for 12 units, maybe I would have went for 10 units. I'm concerned about if that's done in Campfield, which has been sitting there with just a slab for over a year, and now it's starting to turn into an eyesore. Even though I know Turk does beautiful work, and he owns next to me at Beacon Square, and he's done a beautiful job. I think he might be overdoing this situation a little bit too much. Even though I did approve his partition that it came around with, and I still approve it. I wish something would be done with that whole area up there in the R3 zone. There's so many non-conforming things that go on in that area. That's why nobody does anything up there. Even to put a side porch on, you have to go for an A2 survey. You have to go for a variance. That is, and I've lived here over 50 years, and that area is a suppressed area. A lot of homeowners don't even live there. They rent it out. They suck the rent out of it. They don't take care of their properties. That area is the next Bridgeport. It has been, and it's continued to go down, down, down. The town doesn't do anything. There's more unregistered vehicles, boats in that area. That is a suppressed area, and I wish zoning would do something. I've been in front of the zoning board quite a few times. I brought a list of all the unregistered cars and boats, and you drive around that neighborhood, and even the plow trucks can't even plow that neighborhood because how narrow the streets were. And still, they just repaved them a couple years ago. They didn't widen them. You can't even, the town trucks have a terrible job in plowing that area. Now you're going to bring in from Campfield Drive another 20 cars. You're going to bring in another 18 plus cars on Bloomfield Drive. And what's stopping you from, there's a big lot on Myro Street. Gentleman bought 2 empty lots, he's going to tear it down. What's stopping him, and that's probably 40,000 square feet right on Myro Street, there's 2 empty lots. What's stopping him? And I'm thinking about, because I'm a builder, I'm thinking about approaching him and say, hey, why don't we throw in 25 units here? And I bet you the people on Myro Street will be up at arms because they'll say, we don't want that. And what's stopping somebody else from doing it, tearing it down? And before you know it, you're going to have a housing project like you have in Bridgeport all over the place. I think it's a good idea. I wish you would downscale it a little bit. I encourage a developer to come in there and do more in that area, tear some of that old Army housing down. There are a lot of crawl spaces in that area. The groundwater is so high there. You start digging, it's like hitting a water supply line. I don't know what he's going to do with the Caltex rainwater systems in there, or by him digging down, he's not going to put full foundations in because he'll hit groundwater. That's all swampland up there. I remember McKinley School, that used to flood out constantly. They were constantly having problems with Pine Tree Lane, having sewage problems, drainage problems in there because of the old pipe that goes to McKinley School. I remember when the Grove was in there, the dance hall. I think that the whole area really should be changed to a B zone with restrictions. I think this is not good for the whole development area. But I think in the future, I think the town ought to really address that whole issue up there and encourage developers like they do in other areas to come in and invest their money like Turk is doing. And I encourage Turk to do that, and he does nice work. He's just not in there for the short haul like the other piece of property that was just approved. I think he was in there just for the money. And I look at it now, it's an eyesore. I wish him the best, but I think he's going a little bit too much and not really considering the traffic volume. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? Going once, twice? No? Mr. Fallon?
First of all, I want to thank the commission on behalf of myself and the Parlikalic family for your attention to this application. I think what I'll do is just address some of the comments. I respect all the neighbors who spoke. Nonetheless, I think there are some facts that have to be pointed out and counterbalanced. With regard to the last gentleman who spoke, if what we're talking about is taking a part of the town that is developed, or at least could stand enhancement, I mean, this is what this family is doing. This development, be it an 8-30G or not, is an investment in this neighborhood. It's an investment in this community by people with long-term roots in the community. So if the question is trying to address the concerns that were raised there, I think this is a perfect application for it. And while I do respect the people who spoke here tonight, I do also commend you to the petition, signed by hundreds of people. And although
96.
96. You counted, okay, I'm glad somebody did. And I think the outturning here tonight, or the lack thereof, is indicative that there are, I think, a lot of people in this community who, having been approached by the family, doing it the right way, are comfortable with this. As far as the technical issues here, look, it's an 8-30G. Your parking ratio here is 1.5 units, 1.5 spaces per unit, exceeds the ITE standard, exceeds what's in prior applications. In the Land Code decision, Judge Pickard ended by saying, certainly there will be some additional on-street parking at night, and certainly there will be more traffic in the morning and evening near the site. The plaintiff's traffic expert does not deny that there will be some increase, but in his opinion, they will not be substantial. The evidence to the contrary is not anything more than a common sense belief that there has to be an increase in traffic from 12 new housing units. Therefore, the Commission cannot demonstrate the record that the increase clearly outweighs the need for affordable housing. We're trying to bring an application here under a statute that we know is difficult and is controversial. This is one I bring before you most proudly because it's addressing, I think, in a meaningful way, a meaningful need in the community, taking due advantage of the statute itself, but ultimately, I think, providing a good, strong, anchoring development for this neighborhood, as well as addressing the need for affordable housing that we have in the community that I emphasized before. But at the end of the day, the standard here, the Commission understands very well, and that is that there must be some demonstration of substantial evidence of the record, that there is some significant issue of public health and safety that outweighs the need for affordable housing. And the fact that there may be a few more cars parked on the street, or 3 or 4 more cars during a peak hour, I do not believe satisfies that standard.
So there was one question from one of the members of the public, which you might be able to, I know the answer, but I'll ask you to answer it.
Okay.
Why doesn't this need to comply with our zoning regulations in the R3 zone?
Right. The answer to that, as the chair and the Commission knows, is that the state statute and the judicial interpretations that have been made over the last 20 years indicate that when the matter is a qualified 8-30G application, non-compliance with the provisions of the zoning regulations are not a factor, or nor do they present a reason or a proper legal basis for denial. So whether we like it or not, and believe me, I'm on both sides of the table. I'm here, and I represented commissions who have applications in front of them. It can be frustrating for the Commission because the law is that matters that normally would apply in their consideration of applications, setback, coverage, FAR, height, are not of consideration. And that's the answer to the question. But I do thank you for your kind attention, and we hope you will favorably, because I think this is a good, if you see it in your discretion to approve this application, I think it sends a very positive message and sets a sign of template for people who really have sincere interest in 8-30G projects that do not overburden to the point of real concern, and who go about it the way these folks did, long before, we came before you. And I think that's a good thing for the community, and it kind of diffuses a lot of these types of applications. Thank you.
Anyone have any final questions for Mr. Fallon? Okay, very good, thank you. I'll close the public hearing on this item, and I'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.